So I'm going to be playing some COD in the background. I've got game audio turned right down. It should be quiet enough so that it doesn't really get in the way. It's going to be a pretty shocking display of first-person shooting, and if you're a big COD fan, you're probably not going to like how I play it at all. But that's not the point. It's mindless. It's in the background, and apart from me occasionally, maybe actually talking about the game at hand. Because COD has been kind of in and out of the tech news recently for its gargantuan fucking file size for this game.
Oh, I'm so glad we're going to talk about that.
Oh yeah, no, we're going to talk about that. Like this game, just because I really like it, does not get a pass. Thank you very much for hosting.
Of course.
Yeah, just because I like this game, it does not get a free pass at me, I'm afraid. So. I'm playing on PC. I would normally play at a higher frame rate than this, and this is maybe going to affect my gameplay a bit. Not just because I'm streaming at the same time and chatting and actually doing other things as opposed to just playing the game.
You gotta get those excuses in early, mate. You really do.
Eh?
You gotta get those excuses in early, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Like, this is going to be gargantuan. I'm not the best player at the best of times, but like you're just going to see like some horrific stuff going on here.
For hosting your channel, so I can watch it as well, and also just watch you fail.
Yeah, it's going to be the way of things. Man, the gameplay looks a little bit laggy on my end, like watching the stream. But let me know if that's a problem. I can maybe change something.
So, where do we want to start? We have
Oh, I stuck that to the window. Bad start.
The monstrous file sizes in Call of Duty.
Well, yeah, okay, so we kind of mentioned that already as part of the start. So let's talk about the fact that this game particularly has been in the tech news space because of its ludicrous file size.
Kill confirmed.
So, yeah, this game is now clocking in at about 200 gigs.
Right, that is horrific, given that you can have... I think Red Dead Redemption was probably one of the biggest games I've ever sat and downloaded in one go. And I'd say that was close to, what, 100 gigs?
Something along that kind of... Yeah. Something in that region anyway. This game is gargantuan for, the actual... content worth of the game, considering it's still pretty much classic COD. Like, the maps are fairly small. Like, apart from the Warzone map is huge, but like...
Unless you can personally code each and every room in every building to look unique and have full of flavour. 100 gigs is massive. I think it was 100 gigs for Warzone alone.
It was, yeah, 100 gig for Warzone alone, which, like, yes, the map is insanely detailed and you can go into just about every single building in that map, which does make it quite immersive, considering that most games that do big scale maps like that don't go to such an effort to make all of the buildings, like, enterable and actually, like, usable in that respect. But I guess they did kind of go the extra mile in that respect. Are you seeing like just kind of more laggy gameplay, or am I just not looking? Am I just not used to looking at that gameplay at 30 frames a second? Because that's what it's being streamed at.
I am trying to get back to that menu, and I'm just going to go back to Twitch, open up the window, and just open up your stream, and just see what's happening on there. Because once I get through this Amazon this Amazon ad, which I already use that service, I wonder what it's going to take for Amazon to stop putting their own ads on Twitch. Like, how much money do you make off that? But the actual the update sizes are hilarious because they're just so massive compared to everything else. I would just say that I mean, they have a lot of stuff they're building in the back end. I've seen that they're doing a 200 player mode in Warzone.
Yeah, they're like they have a lot, and to be fair, like the character models and stuff, like especially for like the lighting effects, the character models, the gun models, like they are all insanely good. Like especially in the campaign, like it's ludicrous the work that they've put into this Call of Duty specifically. Like it is like ridiculously like detailed in so many ways you just wouldn't expect.
I mean, I compare like what I'm seeing here on like screenshots from the game to various outlets. It does look phenomenal. It seems like they've tried to put that polish that normally goes into the single player experience into a multiplayer game basically. I'm watching your stream now, and yeah, there are weird cutscene jumps, and I think it might be because you're 30 frames a second.
Yeah, probably. Like, this game is so fast-paced, like, that just might be the issue. I mean, I can very quickly stop and restart it at 60 frames. I'm not pushing my CPU here, so I could probably afford a couple extra frames out of this.
But yeah, like the polish and the character models looks like it belongs in the main solo gameplay. It used to be the highlight of the Call of Duty series, but that's obviously gone by the wayside. Go on to PUBG and Battle Royales in general.
Why am I using this?
And,
Suddenly changed class. Oh god.
But yeah, Call of Duty is definitely trying to push itself into that realm of gaming, which, I mean, if they're going to put the effort in, definitely is worth a shot. But at the same time, a 100 gig expansion pack is what this basically is. And yeah, I can't really justify that when... Think about the size of SSDs that are commonly available. There are people I know that are saying, I want to have a machine that is... I want to have like a console or a PC, and I want to have a super fast hard drive on it. So they put in an SSD, they put in an M.2 SSD for PC users, and then all of a sudden, depending on what you've got, your entire SSD might just be your operating system and Call of Duty. Is that what?
Yeah, that is kind of where we're at with this. Yeah, this actually kind of looks bad even on my preview at this point, to be honest. I'm considering like I'll maybe play this for a bit and then I'll switch out to something else so that like I can give my system a break.
I guess you're doing multiplayer, just team deathmatch.
Yeah, this is kill confirmed. This game mode that's here. So when you kill an enemy, they also drop their dog tags, and you need to pick them up to get the point.
Okay, that's fine, because I was watching it, I'm like, he died. I assumed he'd be playing Warzone, given that was what we opened with, but yeah, this looks choppy, and that's very interesting, because you are running a, frankly, overpowered rig.
Yeah,
so,
Jesus. Point blank by him. Yeah, this game is surprisingly demanding. In the places that you would not expect, like especially to get the higher frame rates out of this, it's ludicrously demanding.
Because I mean, yeah, I can see where they're coming from in terms of like demands on your processor, because you ran past a photo of a woman in the window there, and that was like photorealistic. That looked like a photo I would see in a like it looks like something in the background of a TV show, never mind in the game, which is just insane to me.
Yeah, they did put a lot of work into the details and stuff. There's not a huge amount of like AI involved, especially in like the multiplayer side of things. So I am confused as to why it is such a drain on the processor. But nevertheless, like it's still like obviously a really intensive game to actually run on your system. Like the fact that like knowing like because we're going to be comparing like PC and console specs in this stream quite a bit. Knowing that the consoles, or at least the current gen consoles, are what they are currently, I'm really wondering how they're even able to play this game. Like, I know that they're running at like 30 frames a second. I know that they're not like running with the highest graphical settings, and I know they're locked to 1080p. Like, a lot of that does go into it, and a lot of that does matter. But like, just how demanding it is. Like, my system is overkill. My system's even struggling to actually play the game now. That choppiness was straight up from my full system.
I think what will make the difference there is also these consoles are not also streaming the game to Twitch.
Yeah, that's true.
Have you switched back to using your graphics card for the stream output, or have you stuck with CPU usage?
I've stuck with CPU, mainly just because normally for me, I like to run games in a way that literally will push my graphics card to 100%. In fact, I'll bring the stats up on the screen as I'm playing here for a bit. But like, that's my graphics card topping out like 99, 100% constantly throughout this game because of the detail that it's running at. And then my CPU is actually topping out, you know, like in the like high 60s, 70s there because of the stream as well. COD can push about 40% of the CPU just on its own. Normally, I find... Why do I keep changing games? Changing classes. I don't...
Have you put your stats up on the screen yet? Because I haven't seen anything.
Oh, well, I have for me. It's an overlay for me, but...
Right, maybe you're not capturing the entire like screen, you're just capturing your gameplay window.
Oh, maybe, yeah, maybe that's set up wrong. I should just be capturing whatever's on my screen. To me, it looks like that should be on stream.
Yeah, I have nothing other than... Oh wait, it's up on that top left corner.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
It's a lot smaller than I thought it would be. So yeah, I can see you're pushing at high percentages there.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is maybe the benefit that we have as your PC gaming master race, is, you know, our cooling options. I think obviously the Xbox and PS4 5, whatever we're going to talk about here, will be generally like custom designed to have a good ventilation that can handle its internal components. But we can always crank our systems higher and faster with a bit more extra cooling. So yeah, I'm very surprised as well. And I think, if I'm being honest, there's a lot of lighting effects in this map, and you're jumping between different lighting setups. So you're outside in, I would say, the open street with a lot of lights and beams broadcasting on like buildings that I can see in the background. Like that bank is well lit in the background. But then you're jumping inside where you've got top-down lighting as opposed to just general ambient lighting of, you know, the evening sky.
Yeah.
So I think as well with your graphics card being in the 20 range, like your 2060, right?
2060 Super, yeah.
Yeah, so you're I don't know if you have ray tracing enabled.
Not on this. I do want to talk about that a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to switch games out, because this is obviously pushing way too hard, and it's giving us some issues. So let me go and switch out to something a little easier to run. Do you know what? Let's just pick from my Steam library of what I've got installed.
Ooh, la-di-da, Mr. Star Wars background.
Yeah, I know, right?
I had to bring in a laptop to do a Zoom call for work, and I had to change. I had Weathering with You, the anime movie. I had a screenshot of that for my background.
Oh yeah.
Like, I can't have that at work. Like, it's not a lewd shot. There's nothing suspicious about it. But I didn't know what the Zoom call was going to be, and I thought it was going to be like an hour-long sit down and chat with someone. It turned out to be 5 minutes. And that was hilarious. But I didn't know that we would have... I didn't know if I'd have to screen share at some point. And the last thing you want to do is have to explain to 4 of your colleagues, your boss, and an outside contractor just why you love that movie so much. Because it's basically a high school romance story. You're like, I can't explain this to normal people. I can't sell this product.
Yeah, no, I get you, because like somebody's bound to bring it up, and that's the point where you just kind of go,
Or someone goes, okay, Colin likes anime, then they go home and Google anime, and just giant waifu titties pop out, and you're like,
and then you start being like, right, now I've now got to, you know, do some explaining.
Now I have some explaining to do, and I should probably also explain why I know, you know, the woman, the character of the show, everything about it, just from the titties. And I really should explain that a little bit. I shouldn't really have to explain that, so I'll just save it and I'll go with one of the generic stock backgrounds, which are actually pretty nice. One thing I'll say about Windows 10, and do you have a Google Chromecast at all?
I've got like Chromecast built into my TV, like when it's not when it's like actually like sleeping, but just when it's, I guess when it's just like in standby, it just cycles random pictures, and they look really good.
Fantastic.
Yeah, those are really good. They do look really good.
I'd happily just have it on, and just leave it on in the background on a TV as just like a not quite a screensaver, but just as like a piece of ambient art. It just sits there, and like, every now and again it just flips over to the next image. It's quite gorgeous. Some of it's a bit weird, but every now and again you get a nice big wide angle shot of like a city at night time or an ocean or something, you think, God damn it, when can coronavirus leave so we can start traveling again?
Yeah, I know, right? I'm just going to boot COD back up again. One, because I have a theory on a few things that I could change that maybe wouldn't make that look quite as choppy. And for two, I want to make a point about the tech stuff that we're going to speak about here. So, when we talk about the next generation like consoles, like there's been an awful lot of chatter around what they're actually able to push. So one of the main things that somebody said that it was able to do was it was able to do 60 frames a second, 4K Gears of War 5, I think was the thing that Xbox used to kind of say like this is what we're pushing, this is what's happening. And a lot of people in the PC space said, like, you know, how is this possible from a console? Because, you know, this console really, like, they're not going to come out and say, right, new Xbox, it's £1,500. Everybody would go, like, nah, I'm out. No way I'm paying that for a console. And they would jump ship at that point. But they're able to do that, you know, with a console, you know. But we're forgetting that consoles are super optimized for like one set of hardware and one set of settings. They don't have all of these variants that we have. Like this menu that I'm going to show like right here is just the menu for the fucking graphics. Like, and there's so many options and so many drop downs and all sorts of different things can be like figured out here. So it's like just ridiculous how many options we have, and this is something that, regardless of what comes in the next generation for consoles, I still don't think they will have this. I just don't think that is possible. To be perfectly honest, I really don't think it will be.
Yeah, I gotta agree on that one, but I also think that we're underestimating the value of optimizing these type of games because the level we're talking about here. Everything that's on screen right now will never be an issue for the console. However, also you gotta remember, like the console can be made, and then game developers can then go back to their game and then rework certain things to make them work better. They can go back and they can re-optimize. Like the console can be set with its specs and the graphics or the specs of the hardware that's there, and they can make. They can give them out the spec of what's there. Because remember the next, obviously the promising ray tracing with this next console generation, which means they probably have a graphics card comparable with yours somewhere in that system. They keep the price at a reasonable level, get discount on bulk buying many thousands of graphics cards from the manufacturers directly to try and keep that cost down. And you eventually just have enough cut corners where what you produce will be a viable product for a couple of years. You'll sell hundreds of thousands of them and make the money back on a thin margin, and then make more money back through game sales. So that's why I think that we will actually, I mean, those specs, 60 frames a second, 4K, I have my doubts. I'll believe it when I see it, really. And I don't know if it's going to be a sustained thing across many games. I do think that, for example, Gears of War 5 is Microsoft has that studio in their stable. Like they are part of Microsoft's team of studios. They can demand changes. They can help implement changes as well. That's a big part of the developer and then actual publisher relationship is very strong there. And I think we can use that to their advantage to make a better game that runs better on a set hardware list.
Yeah, and like in so many ways, it's like PC manufacturing things can do this as well. Also, the settings that I've changed absolutely have helped this. Look at that; that's so much smoother.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not buttery; it's 30 frames, but still, it's smoother than janky as fuck.
Well, then would you like to explain just what you've changed, just in case anyone's watching is going, "Oh my god, it's so much better. How do I make my gameplay look like this?"
Okay, so first of all, I have decreased the render resolution a little bit. I've taken it from 100%, so this is no longer running at exactly 1440p. This is now running at, oh fuck, I don't know the numbers off by heart. I don't know what 85% of that would be, but it's running at a slightly lower resolution, and then it's just like blowing it up to fill my whole screen as a
1200.
Yeah, something like that. So like it's still higher than 1080p. Still higher than like full HD, but not quite like the quad HD, as it were. Is it quad HD that 2K is? Is that what that works out to be?
Yes, because like 4K is literally just HD times 4.
Yeah.
Enemy cruise missile incoming.
Yeah.
Enemy UAV over.
Give me-
So yeah, we were going for we're just going back to like do we think a console can actually push the numbers that are being sold? And remember, these are marketing materials that we're seeing. It's not quite a lie, I don't want to say that, but it's basically a lie.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Like, this has happened almost every single console generation. Like, if you think back to when the Xbox One came out, like PS4, Xbox One, that generation coming out, what was happening around about then was that all of the things that were coming out was basically saying like, oh yeah, our new console is going to be able to do X, Y, and Z, and all of the PC players were still in the exact same space. They were still saying like, how is that possible? Because like right now you need like a pretty high-end PC to be able to deliver what these consoles are saying that they're going to deliver, like straight away. So you know, Xbox One comes out, PS4 comes out. And the graphics are roughly similar to that of like the NVIDIA 900 series, but the NVIDIA 900 series, after many driver updates and stuff, actually then was able to push better graphics and better frame rates with those improved drivers, because it could just rely on a better cooled system, like within a PC as opposed to within like an Xbox. So even though the cards pretty much matched in terms of like their specs and performance, PC ended up getting the better deal at the end of the day. And so that's kind of how it ends up working out. Just want to see if full screen borderless will still give me what I want rather than giving me that janky mess, because I like being able to actually leave that screen.
If maybe console, I doubt this will happen, but as far as like firmware patches go, I wonder if console like manufacturers will start to look at the way that, you know, people like Nvidia do this, do their upgrades, where they can go in and, you know, rework drivers, make things a bit more optimized after the selling point, and make things a little better, and make that a more active part of console ownership.
Yeah, I definitely, I think it's a potential. I don't want to say that it definitely will be a thing. Like, right now, the current gen consoles, they do get patches, they do get firmware updates, they get reworks to, like, their dashboard, as it were, like their desktop. Which, you know, kind of makes... It re-optimizes these background processes to, you know, allow them to do more. That can only do so much, but I mean, like, depending on what you're prepared to do in these firmware updates. Oh fuck! I hate this map. I'm just going to be a dirty sniper in this map. I'm sorry, but this map always devolves into a bloody sniper fight, and I hate it. And I'm not getting caught running into the middle and dying constantly, so I'm just going to join in this time. Anyway, yeah, the consoles and stuff, that can only do so much, but really famously, AMD with their XT series cards, the 5500 through to the 5700 XT graphics cards, they recently pulled like a pretty ridiculous firmware upgrade on them. So they were like, you know, they were originally running at like, you know, XYZ performance, and then a firmware update came through for these cards, like a driver update. And suddenly all of these cards were like, you know, they were just basically unlocking a factory overclock setting that was disabled initially until they could gather up data from different like consumers and different gameplays and stuff like that. There was a lot of stuff that was going into it to like research whether they could or couldn't get away with doing the upgrade that they were doing. Like, it was basically, you know, it was going to push the cards harder, but it was going to increase your frame rates or your graphical setting, you know, performance quite significantly. The issue that they had to contend with was like whether or not in the majority of people's systems were the cards going to completely overheat or not. And after they did their text data collection and stuff, they decided no, for like 99% of people this is not going to be an issue, therefore we're just going to do it. And we're going to see what comes of it. And then suddenly this new driver update dropped, and all of the people that were running AMD cards were suddenly getting like a 20% increase in some cases in frame rates, like really significantly like higher and better frames that they were getting. It was quite ludicrous, actually. Like, the AMD graphics cards that came out in this generation were never, like, stellar. And they weren't, like, absolutely ridiculous, but the fact that they suddenly started, like, pushing such ridiculous frame rates actually, like, put them toe-to-toe with NVIDIA's offerings. And in some cases, actually still surpasses them. You know, not in every case, but in some cases, that is like where they're at in terms of their graphics drivers now and their graphics cards. I don't know if partly it comes down to they just don't have to think about or worry about like the ray tracing side on those cards yet. I was talking to Kaylee about this the other day, actually, because she was debating whether or not to. First of all, she's like thinking about getting a new graphics card of some description at some point. She doesn't know when, but she's kind of thinking like, you know, does she want one that's ray tracing capable? And I was actually making the argument that I didn't know if she would actually ever need to buy a graphics card that was capable of ray tracing, considering that for some of the high-end NVIDIA cards of the last generation, they actually ended up enabling some of them to run ray tracing stuff without proper like ray tracing hardware.
Yeah, there was a set chip that was involved in that process, and then someone just didn't have it, and they just said, "Oh, you actually just have this spare power lying around on your graphics card that we can use to enable ray tracing in a way." It worked surprisingly well, and everyone said, "Wait, they might have needed the cards."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's actually kind of weird, like the way that it ended up working. I think like I was really surprised actually that like this was something that could be enabled through a card that shouldn't have had the support there in the first place. But what I was saying to Kaylee was that the realistic approach to it is that ray tracing is going to be something that eventually gets supported on the software side as opposed to the hardware side. So you're not going to see graphics cards specifically that are advertising ray tracing as a thing. NVIDIA's doing it right now because that's their thing, that's their gimmick for those graphics cards. That's how they're trying to... Yeah, and it's like a new thing, it's like a fringe tech. So that's... What are you doing on the shelves? So that's like how they're trying to kind of get their share of the market in this current generation.
Yeah. I'd say that as well. It depends on what types of games you play. I don't see there being that. I mean, a lot of PC gaming is FPS, as far as I'm aware. Maybe that's just the crowd I hang out with. But there's not a lot of people jumping through like story-based moments. That, you know, ray tracing is great for highlighting these interesting cinematic moments. And I just don't know that many people who use a PC to play that type of game. And maybe it's just, I say, the group I'm with, the people I know, maybe they're just not interested in that type of gameplay. But for most people, when you talk about big cinematic storytelling, it's typically a console experience.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. Like, I would say that the majority of the games that I play are at least first person on PC. I wouldn't necessarily say they're always shooter based, but they're definitely often first person, just because there's something about first person shooters especially that just translates really well into mouse and keyboard. That is why this gets used for this so often.
There's something about the accuracy, because someone asked once, I think it was recently in a subreddit, somebody said, look, I just don't do PC gaming, can someone explain the hype around mouse and keyboard? And I went and listed a couple of points and said, look, your mouse is more accurate compared to a joystick on a console controller. You also have the option of multiple commands built into the mouse. I can't tell you how many times like the 5th and 6th mouse button come into play as grenade launchers for me.
Yeah, I was away to say that's exactly in this game. That's exactly what I use. Like my other mouse buttons for is my both lethal and tactical grenades in this game, because it's just such a handy button to have them on. I don't need to take my hands away from my movement keys or my keyboard to actually hit a grenade button.
And that, and as well sensitivity options. We've experienced a little bit of that with the You've got an Elite controller, right, for the Xbox?
Yeah, I got the Pro controller.
Yeah, and
or whatever it's called, the Elite.
You know, a little bit of customization there as far as your input goes. You can set a mini delay so that when you initially move the controller, I've lost the word for it.
Analog stick is, I think, what you're looking for.
Yeah, when you move the stick initially, there's you can have it snap move initially, or you can have it not move at all, so you get that little soft spot in the middle where you've halved your movement speed, and then once you actually, if you push the stick all the way to the outside, you then get proper movement. You can fiddle around with that. It's honestly not worth it from my experience just to sit and recalibrate. I just don't play enough FPS on console to get my money's worth out of that, and I just want a responsive control stick because I've been using it that way for years.
Yeah,
I know what I'm looking for on the stick compared to what I see on screen.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I did play around with it a little bit when I got my controller, but I've got to say, honestly, I ended up I tried a couple of different settings. I tried some specifically for certain games, but at the end of the day, I literally just ended up setting it just back to the default. This is how a stick should feel, and that's what I'm used to, and I just go with that. Although I did increase the tension on the sticks because I like a little bit more resistance, especially for driving games, which I will pretty much always play with a controller at least. That is one thing that does not translate well at all to mouse and keyboard, is a fucking driving game.
I actually have my Elite controller plugged into my PC, and I was talking about playing No Man's Sky earlier.
Yeah.
And I actually have the mouse and keyboard in front of me for the first person moments, and the second I step in the ship, I pick up the controller. And surprisingly, the game immediately recognises and will shift. You'll be looking at something, and the second you touch your controller, all the instructions on the screen automatically flick over to what it should be on the controller.
Yeah, that's
very impressive.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I actually do. I have it similarly set up for me for The Witcher 3, which is actually a third-person action game, adventure game that I do play on PC. But I do play it with a controller because, it's just one of those things that it plays better with a controller. I'm sorry if you're a big Witcher 3 person and you just, for whatever reason, really like the mouse and keyboard controls. I'm just going to tell you, I think you're wrong. I don't think that game plays particularly well on mouse and keyboard. I just don't think any. Did you really need to blow me up with a rocket launcher from directly behind me? What was the point?
I can't wait to see this clip. Yeah, he was 10 feet behind you and was like, I am going to destroy the shenanigan.
Yeah, he was right there.
But my point about the sensitivity controls was that, I have two buttons on this mouse that control DPI, and it just changes. I can change that on the fly. I could be looking down a scope, holding the right mouse button down, and just with the left finger just nudging the DPI up and down a bit to find the right sweet spot for, say, sniping, and then switching back to FPS, running some of the submachine gun controls. I can do that myself, and that's the argument for an FPS first-person shooter games, that you would have you would choose mouse and keyboard over a console controller any day. But you're very right in saying racing games do not translate at all. Anything, the second there's a vehicle involved, I reach instinctively for a controller because it is, I think it's to do with that let's say it's an analog stick, but it's not really analog controls. There's too many variables in an analog. Like analog control itself is it not supposed to be 1 and 2s? Like analog or 0 and 1. Analog is binary, I think.
Yeah, I can't think exactly how it works precisely. Oh, it's that guy? Oh, I was totally looking at him for ages.
There's a large like there's so many variables, you get so much more direct input using the sticks. It's great when it comes to driving. Like the Forza games, I tried using a mouse and keyboard for 5 minutes and said, this is beyond unusable. I'm switching back to my Xbox controller immediately.
Yeah, like, don't get me wrong, there's some things that, like, some things do work, some things don't work mouse and keyboard wise. Some things are surprising. I've not tried a controller at all with No Man's Sky in the little amount that I've played. I did just stick to mouse and keyboard just to get used to it, and it was alright.
I'd give it a go for your like piloting and stuff. And I'm guessing it makes the menus a bit easier to navigate.
In some ways.
Because I was trying to learn all the commands for like the quick menus for certain things. I said, fuck this, I'm going to use tab all the time.
Yeah.
Tab it to the actual menu. And yeah, I'm getting eaten by a dinosaur with like a weird tumor on its face, but I also know what's going on rather than trying to guess which button opens which menu.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. What else do we have? I see we saw the PS5's reveal came out, and any thoughts on the way it looks?
The router versus mini fridge argument, or
I don't mind it, to be honest.
I don't mind it at all. I think it looks pretty futuristic. I think it looks pretty good. I actually kind of like the look of the controller. I still think firmly that the analog sticks are in the wrong place. I just don't think that's a comfortable way to hold a controller. Especially like for somebody that has spent so long with an Xbox controller, a PlayStation controller just feels uncomfortable. Like
it does seem larger though, which is a big issue for me.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, I think that might be okay. But I'm not sure. Is there any particular reason they made it larger? Like, were they going for like battery capacity of the controller, or is there lots of extra functionality built into controller? It kind of almost looks like the D-pad function side of the controller looks like it's a touch-orientated interface this time, as opposed to being like an actual physical button.
No, I'm looking at some images of it now, and it definitely seems like a button.
Fair enough. I might have just never looked.
Like the left-hand side buttons, or do you mean the actual main, the big pad in the middle?
Oh no, I know the pad in the middle will probably be a touch-orientated thing because PlayStation did that in the whole last generation. So I imagine they'll stick with it. And that touchpad is quite cool for certain things, but largely I think it's a bit of a weird button, and so few games implement it, especially the cross-platform ones. Like, I've never really truly played like a PlayStation-only title that's used that in a really interesting way. I've only ever really played the cross-platform titles that implement it as a button that does something.
Yeah,
and obviously, like
a map or something like that.
Yeah, and like it's super useful for certain things. Whenever I have used a PlayStation, I actually use it to type rather than like using the analog stick or the D-pad to like move around the keyboard. I actually just. Yeah, like you can just really lightly like tap on the touchpad, and it basically brings up like as if you were like swiping on your phone to do like a swipe keyboard.
Huh. It'd be interesting to try and learn that, as I've just had it trying to mentally visualize the spacing of like a QWERTY keyboard across that blank space without actually looking at it.
Yeah, it's not something that you could touch type on. I fully believe that you couldn't do that, but it's kind of finicky. But once you get used to it, I found it a lot faster. At least I found it a lot faster for actually like typing stuff in than like D-padding around. There's like something I see quite a lot in Call of Duty actually, which is worth bringing up, is it tells you when you are in the game lobby, it tells you, like, because this game's totally cross-platform, So it tells you, first of all, what platform they're playing on, which is great. It also tells you whether or not they're using a gamepad or a mouse and keyboard.
Friendly UAV
Yeah,
online.
because a lot of the consoles implemented mouse and keyboards in this generation, so I'm hoping that we get a bit more of that.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing. I certainly think there's certain games, at least, that like a mouse and keyboard would actually work quite well as a translation way of like controlling these games.
Yeah. And
Oh my
as far
God,
as actual
him.
PS5 like the size of the controller, I really think it's an ergonomic thing because gamers are now older compared
Yeah,
to kids.
yeah, we are. We're old as fuck.
And we don't have those tiny childlike hands anymore, and even then, like, kids just adapt to whatever you throw at them. So you might as well have a reasonably sized controller. I think Microsoft grabbed that idea earlier than Sony did.
Yeah, well, they implemented this super ergonomic design back on the 360 controller. Because if you look at the 360 versus Xbox One versus the Series X controller, also terrible naming scheme, by the way, really easily confusing, especially to people that are not into that space. So, yeah, I think that's a bit of a separate topic. We'll come back to that. But I definitely think that like they must have nailed it, and they must know that people like it, because just look at how little that controller has changed, like through 3 generations now.
Yeah, I think the only thing is they made it a little bigger. Like Xbox 360 to my Elite controller, all that's changed is there's maybe a couple extra, like there's like an inch extra size on that thing, just by little bits here and there.
Yeah.
Where Sony's have to basically redesign the wheel.
Yeah, like, and I don't think that's a bad thing, because I honestly, like, I maybe made it kind of clear in what I was saying about the PlayStation controller, but I didn't really like the PS3 controller. I personally thought it was way too small, and I still find a PlayStation 4 controller a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I'd recommend anyone who has the opportunity, go back and pick up I'd say, like, the same way we talk about like an Xbox 360 to Xbox One X control hasn't changed much at all. Pick up a PS1 controller and then go pick up a PS3 controller, and you have the same issue. Like, it's almost an issue in those generations, because that's the same generations of gamers getting older with the console, and then their body's changing and the console not changing to match it anymore. That's why I think you have more. Do you remember, like, I don't know if they're still around, Wildcats controllers or Mad Cats controllers?
Mad Cats, yeah, man.
Yeah. Apparently, I think I've seen some of their products that are still floating around, but the one thing they did was they made bigger controllers. And I think that was a deliberate play to get older people who also happen to be gamers, just with bigger hands and bigger bodies, compared to a child's body. You just have to have something there for them. And I wonder if that would maybe be implemented, maybe even just with a smaller controller sold available for kids. I'm not entirely sure if these companies are considering pursuing that, or if they just throw the full size controller at a child and say, "You figure it out. You're a kid. You're so smart. You figure it out."
I mean, I fully think that there's an awful lot of ergonomic thought that's went into it, more so than we're probably thinking that there has been. They're probably, you know, they are reckoning, like, you know, that most people will be able to use these. So
yeah, this thing will have been focus tested into the ground.
oh, definitely. You know, people will say that they like it. So since we've talked about PS5 design, do you like it, by the way?
I like the look of it. I think it's a weird design. It changes away from like traditional console design, which is a black box that sits in the middle of all your other black boxes underneath the TV. And I was thinking about it and saying it is nice to see something that looks different. And somebody was complaining about this on a Discord server I was in, and I said, if you don't like it, put it behind your television. No one's gonna see it. Nobody gives a shit. just hide it somewhere. It doesn't seem that big. I'm pretty sure I could tuck this away behind the TV and it wouldn't be an issue. The one thing I'll say though is, look at that CD drive on the front of that thing and tell me that Sony don't want you to buy digital edition over the normal version.
It's
that bulb is ugly.
Yeah, that it like, I was watching the IGN Summer of Gaming Expo as it was streaming out this week, and one of the hosts on I think day 4, which was actually the PC space one, they basically called it out for looking like a tumour on the side of the console, and I have to kind of agree. I don't think it looks great with the disk drive. I don't think that's been very well implemented. I think almost it was kind of an afterthought. Like, there must be a graph somewhere that shows them the consumer trends, and more people are going digital just because of digital sales and no chance of losing like digital medium and stuff. It makes perfect sense. Like, I have been pretty much all digital for a long time, but I would still buy, if I do buy a new console, which is actually the first time in a console generation that I've even been in this position where I am basically just saying, like, the new consoles are going to come out. I might just wait for a new series of graphics cards to drop on the PC and just spend what money I would have on a console on a new graphics card instead, because likelihood is they're probably going to be about the same kind of price. And I've already got like a lot of the other, required ridiculous specs on my PC. So, like, why not just, double down on it and just get that, extra... Just get that extra on my PC instead of having this whole new console. Especially because, like, what I'm playing right now, also a great example of this, Call of Duty is fully enabled crossplay. You don't have to play crossplay. You can choose to play with just people from your own platform, but this is full crossplay enabled between PlayStation 4, between Xbox, and between PC. It doesn't matter what platform you're playing on or what one you own it on, you can play with everybody from every different platform in every different game mode.
And as a member of the PC Master Race, it is your sworn responsibility to crush the peasants into the dirt, so you're playing with cross-platform people.
Yeah, I mean, I do find that I get killed by the console players quite a lot because their auto-aim is a little intense on this game. It certainly it snaps to you a little more than I'd like, and you just don't have that advantage with mouse and keyboard, but I can turn on the dime a lot faster than they can, unless they're playing with sensitivity that must make general aiming an absolute pain in the ass. But I mean, I wouldn't say I'm competitive enough to really care that much about exactly like what the difference of like the auto aim rates and stuff are between like platforms. I'm not that bothered. Like, this is a game. It's a very good game, very fun game. I've really enjoyed it. I actually ended up dropping a little extra money on it and getting the battle pass for all sorts of extra cosmetics and other things, weapons and stuff that you can get through it. I like seeing numbers go up, and I like unlocking stuff, and I don't know if other games have done this, but I personally really quite liked that in the Call of Duty infrastructure, you have to buy, well, you don't have to buy, but you can earn what they call COD points, which is basically your currency for the store. You can earn them just naturally through gameplay and progression. Like, those come naturally. They're not particularly, like, frequent, but you can earn them through gameplay and stuff just naturally. You never have to actually spend any more money on it if you don't want. Me personally, I dropped £8 on last season's Battle Pass, and because you get more COD points through owning the Battle Pass, I had enough in my wallet come this season that I was able to buy this season's Battle Pass, and I've not spent any more real money on it.
That is good.
So that's actually a really good way of keeping me in this infrastructure, because I know exactly the same way. In fact, actually, after this match, I'll come out of the lobbies and I'll show you the Battle Pass thing. So the ones that are headed up free is stuff that you can get regardless of whether or not you have the Battle Pass. So you will see that there's occasionally like 100 COD points that come up for free. There's emblems, there's weapons, there's skins, there's charms, there's all sorts that come up for free. But equally, there's as many COD points that are locked behind, the paid version of this Battle Pass. But I mean, it costs 1,000 points for a Battle Pass in every season. They've already come ahead and confirmed that. I've got 500 in the bank right now, and like this season has barely started. Like, we've got 48 days left on it, like month and a half. Like, there's so many COD point drops on here. I can pretty much guarantee that if I'm still playing this game come that next season, I will be able to get that for no extra, real world money put into it again. Which, for me, that I think that works really well as a way to retain a player.
Yeah, unless they can tempt you with something like a skin or like a loot pack that you just have to spend COD points on, yeah, you should be able to maintain your position in the battle pass, basically free charge. And all for like an £8 thing, you get a better version of the game, but more enriched version of the game than what you would normally get.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's cool. Like, you can see numbers and shit go up anyway, but you get a permanent 10% XP boost if you have the full version of the game, and which I do. I didn't actually buy it. Kaylee bought it for me. Here's what I was saying about in the lobby here of like it showing you which platform people are on and whether they're using like a gamepad or a controller. You do occasionally see PC players playing with a controller. I can only assume that they're probably playing for like the increased frame rate or the graphical fidelity, but they're still taking advantage of the controller's auto-aim feature.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that I can really think of as being the reason that you would do like that. God, there's so much in this topic. Like one stream is not enough to talk about all this stuff. Like
one thing I wanted to touch on was we're talking about the PS5 and like the digital version versus the physical, like the disc version.
Yeah,
and the very obvious visual difference. But I was listening to the WAN show, which is from Linus Tech Tips. Don't know if you watched his stuff.
I've never actually watched the WAN show, but I love watching Linus videos. I do really want to get into watching his WAN show live show. Like I think like for how entertaining he is generally, I genuinely think I could sit and listen to him for an extra couple of hours quite easily.
Yeah, well, it's a once a week thing. They go through the news and they have it's just like it's available as a podcast, which is my way of listening to it. I would watch the video, but I just don't have time, so I'll put it on my podcast app and then throw it on while I'm working to workers on it and just learn on the way to work. But he was saying that apparently there is a recommendation from the Sony, or like a guideline from the Sony team saying your game that you're making for the PS5 has to be entirely able to install on the hard drive of the PS5, so that it plays exclusive. Like you can play the entire thing off the hard drive. It's not as much about the disc. Like the disc is there just as a delivery method for the large chunk of data that becomes the game.
Yes,
but ultimately it must play off the hard drive, so it's compatible with the digital version and the original. And I think that is part of a push to get everything as digital as possible.
I mean, I can understand it. Like, it's really strange. Like when you talk about an all digital console, I'm not sold on it. And I'll tell you why is because a console for me in the living room, in my living room specifically, in this example, because that's where mine's is, and that's where I would sit to play a console, is my living room. And the reason that I want a disc drive on there is because I still own DVDs, and I would still want to watch DVDs and Blu-rays through in my living room. And it's like, if no other reason, that's just a good way to have an option to do that for me in the living room without also having a DVD or Blu-ray player in there.
Yeah, I understand that one. I'm in a weird position where I actually I went and bought a Blu-ray player because for some reason I bought DVDs and stuff. I buy a lot of anime DVDs. If I really love a show, I'll support it by buying the DVD. And sometimes that means buying the American version of stuff. So I went and, like years ago, bought a Region Unlocked Blu-ray player.
No, that makes a lot of sense to me, and I understand why you've done that.
Yeah. So I have it as a separate thing. I just have that as a separate item. And for my, I don't even have a CD drive on my PC, but I do have a USB CD drive because I buy CDs, so that I can share music that I enjoy, which it's now becoming a little redundant, just with the way that music has changed from CDs and radio and stuff to like apps and streaming services and playlists. Music is shared differently now. Music's shared in tweets rather than me going to you and saying you need to listen to this album and handing you a CD. We're aging out of that one. We're becoming the boomers we swore we'd never become.
Yeah. I can definitely see like there's definitely this shift to like the all digital like market, as it were. And I can completely understand it. Like I had a CD drive in my old PC. I don't have it in my new one, but I still do. I did actually just keep the drive itself, like with a connector that just allows me to hook it in via USB, even though it's like a SATA cable and like a power cable converter. It just allows me to hook that into my PC and use it if I need to do something like burn a disc for some reason, or I've gotten a copy of an old game or something like that, and I just so happen to only have the disc for that. And that
it's
is
a handy tool to have. It's underrated.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely see why there's been a shift away from it. Because do you know what? Like, I don't think there's been a single time that I've actually said like, "Oh, I'll make a disc of that." Like so often, I'm just like, I'll throw that on a USB. If I really want it in some kind of physical medium, or need it for some reason, I'll throw it on a USB. I mean, like, to be honest, the things, the most common thing that I'm using USBs for at the moment actually is making bootable Linux drives from USB drives. It might sound like a bit of a weird thing, but like just after like having in previous days had issues with installs of Windows and knowing how temperamental certain elements of Windows can be, I'm never going to fully switch to like a Linux system, but having a bootable Linux key on a USB drive is great if Windows for one reason one day just won't boot. I can go in, I can access the Windows files, I can correct errors, I can troubleshoot without actually needing to get into Windows, and that's my reason for doing that.
Yeah, it's pretty handy. And the one thing that really pushes me towards like digital streaming and stuff is the convenience. And I'll use an example from like earlier this week, and this was like an argument I had with my brothers on like Friday. I was talking about Post Malone's album Beer Bong and Bentleys. I don't like that album at all. It's subpar. It's not his best work. I think Stoney and Hollywood is Bleeding are much better albums. But I was listening to like Stoney in the morning. I listened to Hollywood's Bleeding a couple days back, but then I went, I never really listened to Beer Bongs and Bentleys. I'll give it another go. It's been a couple of years since I listened to it. I tapped 3 buttons on an app and I had it downloaded. That is the convenience, that is the push towards a streaming service. A good streaming service can provide that. So I had that all sitting and ready to go. I did that in the space of like less than 2 minutes, just because I have a good connection. My phone's really fast at downloading stuff through the service I use. It's a very streamlined process. It's very user friendly. So all that took, let's say, 2 minutes. From 2 minutes to me thinking I never have that album, I never listened to it, to like finish downloading it, playing it through my headset. Consider the alternative, which is I think I never have that album. I need to go get the CD, rip it, move the files from the computer to the phone's like hard drive. Even with all the best connections, best gear that I can bring to the table, that is a 10-15 minute process.
Easily, if not more.
Yeah. And that also requires me to have the physical album. Compare that to the convenience of a digital streaming service, you can see the advantages pretty obvious. It suits a lot more people, and it fits into a lot more people's daily lives a lot better than requiring physical media. And I think they're pushing the whole digital side of things as far as gaming is concerned. But it does leave you with the issue of you don't actually own anything anymore. You don't own a physical representation of the item you bought. You just have the license to use it temporarily. And actually, we're looking at this like the censorship side of things right now. There's obviously a lot of unrest with regards to civil rights movements. The Black Lives Matter protests are continuing for like the 3rd week, I think, in the wake of the death of George Floyd, and we are like going back and reviewing old shows. So, for example, there's an episode of Faulty Towers got pulled this week, and then was later reinstated on the streaming platform with a note from the platform's editor saying this was made in the 1970s, almost 50 years ago, and it's a little insensitive now, but please remember there's context to show consider that when you watch the actual episode. And all of a sudden, like when the initial episode was pulled, there was just there's the usual kind of outcry from people who disagree with that. But it is a good reminder that you don't actually own stuff on streaming platforms. You just have a temporary license with the service provider to use and access whatever they're giving you for however long they feel like that you should have access to it.
Yeah.
You're coming off Netflix all the time. Even regardless of censorship and how you feel about that. But at some point, shows just stop being on a platform.
Yeah, it's definitely like a kind of weird age that we're in. I think like it's kind of a showcase of like I want to say how busy our day-to-day lives have become, but I don't actually necessarily think that our day-to-day lives are actually any busier. I just think people have less patience for doing things particular ways. Like, you know, a show's on Netflix. Okay, cool. So, do you know what? You're probably going to sit, you're going to binge it, you're going to enjoy it, and then at the end of the day, it's going to come off of Netflix, but you're probably finished watching it by then and ready to move on to the next thing, and you don't have any physical tying attachment to that thing. You've never had to directly spend money on that show for like DVDs or like subscriptions to its, you know, particular service, or to like get copies of it in whatever way. Like this is all just how you actually consume media and information now. Like, you have no attachment for it. It's like what you said, like about ripping the music. You know, I can think of, like, I actually still do. I recently chucked almost every album that I had, but I still have a couple of limited edition copies and signed copies that I have from years gone back. And my reason for doing that is because I have an emotional, physical attachment to that thing. I can't imagine having the same emotional, physical attachment to something that is only ever data on a hard drive. Like, I just don't think that is possible in the same way.
Yeah. I got rid of a bunch of like my Warhammer books. I just don't have room for them, don't have space, don't have time for them. I don't go back and reread books. So I really don't know why I kept those books for so long in the first place. But as I was going through, making sure there was nothing that like I was chucking away, I found signature, because I've met authors that wrote these books, and immediately seeing that signature in that book takes me back to meeting that person, talking to them for like 20 minutes about a character that I really loved, and just talking with them, sharing a moment with someone I admire as an author. And was like, oh shit, that's why physical media matters. That's why holding something physically in your hands is entirely different to me just having it on Kindle. I mean, you can get an author to sign a Kindle, I guess. I wonder how many authors have actually been asked, hey, would you sign my Kindle? At like conventions or meet and greets or whatever.
Do you think authors have like a digital scanned copy of their like signature and or a signed copy of the book that they'll let you digitally download for a couple extra bucks? You know, are we actually in that you know scenario? But yeah, I just don't believe that. I just don't believe that people are truly all that bothered about like the stuff that they have anymore. Like, you know, I can't even think the last time that I enjoyed a game, you know, so much that I needed to keep a hold of like physical copies or anything like that. Like,
yeah, I'm perfectly happy with it being digital until something changes or gets moved or removed, or something gets patched out, and I was like, well, I wanted to keep that. That was a thing I enjoyed.
Yeah. In argument to that, though, we are in such a wide, like, big-scale digital age now that so many people just don't grab original patches and stuff like when something goes live straight away. So if you're looking for a particular version of a game as opposed to the latest one that you can download and play like from whatever, you know, store that you're on, I can almost guarantee you somebody somewhere has uploaded that to the web and you can go and grab a particular version of it.
You just need to know that community and need to know where those resources are.
Yeah.
Like, I know you hate the game, but 7 Days to Die has a pretty good community and are very good at grabbing patches and archiving. And actually, the developers themselves take part in that and have all the previous patches as part of Steam as well. I don't know if they're all there, I imagine you probably get rid of version 1 pretty quickly, but there's like a back catalogue because they know one day we might release something that completely shits the bed. So we'll just push it. We'll keep other previous versions to go back to in the event of catastrophic failure and make it publicly available. But there's no guarantee that that's available for, say, especially like online competitive games have become so much bigger. You can't have games like Rainbow Six Siege, games like Call of Duty, where you have people competing with these games or through these games. You can't have people running different versions.
Yeah, no, yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. Like those versions, they have to sync to what the server's running. So server side, you know, and client side has to match. So you've got to be on the latest versions of these things. So like, you know, that's certain games. Like, I guess some other ones are exceptions to the rule. For the most part, I would like to think that the updates that come out are generally things that people enjoy. But I've honestly kind of been blown away, especially having played like this Call of Duty a little bit more. I have been blown away by the toxic nature of random online games at this stage.
Like, you mean actually interacting with people in the lobby, or just if you throw on like a headset, or are you talking like the community on like social media, like Reddit, Twitter, and stuff like that?
I'm talking kind of about everything, to be honest.
Everything.
yeah, like in the lobbies is particularly bad. I think the feedback from lobbies, both via headset and via like the text chat, especially from the PC players, gets really quite gritty and quite gruesome pretty quick sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, I have been blown away by just the sheer, like, tenacity of some people to actually, you know, say the things that they have said in some of the lobbies. And I actually just think, you know, like, are these people genuinely doing so little else with, you know, their own personal lives and, like, their own time and stuff, that the thing that is bothering them so much to the point of real anger is the way that somebody is playing in a particular game, or the fact that somebody is using a particular weapon and they just think, like, you know, this weapon is only used by noobs because of X reason.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, we remember we grew up in the Xbox 360 lobbies. Like, it was rough in those streets too, and it was just vile, vicious, like nasty kid shit. And it's that thing of like, a kid really doesn't have a filter through which they process the words they say to other people. They just say whatever they feel like, and normally that word is probably a slur. It's probably very short, and it's probably about someone's mother. So it's very limited interaction. And like, I mean, we played a lot of Grand Theft Auto 5 or Grand Theft Auto Online. I mean, the worst you'd probably get there is occasionally being called something by somebody as they drove by in a Lamborghini. Or you'd have somebody leaving their mic on all the time and playing like weird music that you didn't really give a shit about, but they're high as shit at like 3 in the morning playing Grand Theft Auto, so they just have it playing through their headset and you get to listen along. I was going to talk mad shit about somebody's dog barking in the background, but then I could hear Maisie barking in the background of this conversation, so probably shouldn't throw...
Oh, has she been? Fuck, I didn't even notice.
I probably shouldn't throw stones in that glass house.
I get it. Like, it is annoying. Like, I was in a lobby in this game just this morning, actually, where somebody was just having a full-blown conversation, like, over live chat. Like, they weren't in a party, they weren't private, they weren't muted, just live to everybody, having a conversation with somebody in the background of their house.
Right.
and I was like, what madman are you that you can just openly have some random conversation over a lobby with a bunch of people that you don't even know?
Do you remember when Grand Theft Auto Online kind of first launched, like week 1 or 2, someone went into the strip club and basically sexted or had like a weirdly sexual conversation with one of the strippers? And the stripper obviously isn't responding, but they just had the mic on and were whispering nothing to the stripper, and everyone in the lobby could hear it, and it got recorded. I think it must still be up on YouTube. It's one of the funniest things ever. It's just this guy filth to a digital stripper. I gotta find it. I'll try and find it for you.
Yeah, I've not seen it, but you know what? Like, put it in some kind of link dump somewhere, because like, I've not seen it, but I want to see it out of curiosity.
Yeah. it's pretty. It's that morbid curiosity that means you can't really help yourself.
Do you know what else was actually kind of shocking to me? From just having my headset on and just like I don't have everybody else muted by default in this, because there's a great little feature in this game which I personally really love, and it's when you get a kill of somebody on the opposite team, it lets their mic play to you for a couple of seconds after you've killed them. So
Really?
yeah, and it's fantastic. What a great feature, because every time, like sometimes when you get a kill, you can just hear somebody go, "Oh," and I live for that. Like that makes it all worth it, and that's the reason I leave that on. But
I look for the moment where they give up and just mutter, "Fuck's sake."
yeah, I've had that a couple of times, and honestly, like it just makes everything else so worth it. Like I'm sure it's happened at least once. There's a guy here. There he is. I'm sure it's happened at least once while we've been on this stream. Like, if somebody was listening carefully enough, they're bound to have heard that actually happen a couple of times.
Yeah, I think we're done with the PS5. I mean, I think it looks good. Yeah, haha, it looks like a router, but it's better than yet another black box. I mean, you go back and look at the console designs for the last couple of years. The last, I guess, interesting console that I can really think of outside of Nintendo, because they just do what they want and don't really care. I don't know if you actually heard their grand strategy.
I have not.
I think it's either the blue water or the red water strategy. I can't remember what it was described as. But the idea is Nintendo will just do what it wants. And they will not compete with Microsoft or Sony, the other big dogs in the market. They'll let those two fight it out.
Yeah, I kind of think that for the first time in a while, I actually think that the console race has actually become a three-person race, because I would almost say that PC has surged in popularity enough over the last console generation that it's now in the running for one of the main platforms that people are going to consume content on. Like, I'm even considering not getting a new console because there's so much cross-compatibility with PC now. Like, on my PC I have access to Steam, GOG, I have access to Xbox Game Pass for PC, I have access to game streaming apps, I have access to Origin, even though that's pretty rubbish. I have I have options for Battle.net. Which is what you play, like, this particular Call of Duty through it anyway, until it gets a little bit older and Battle.net drops it, and then you get it on Steam. Like, that's a thing. But
I'd say that, by the way, also that EA Origin has hit 9 years old. That thing has been a waste of time for 9 whole years.
Jeez, it's old to still be as broken as it is.
Yeah. Not a lot of brain damaged babies make it this far.
Wow. Right, okay. You might want to edit that one out. That's rough.
I told you we were from those Xbox 360 lobbies.
yeah, well, it was. That was just the case of it. Where did I just get shot from? Wow. Okay. Hate when you come around the corner, there's two of them. It's when you just know.
I want to look at something. I found a hilarious article written by the Metro of all people, the news that's only fit to wipe a bus seat with. And they have 5 reasons that the PS5 reveal was a disappointment. Did you watch it? It looked pretty good.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good actually, especially for the fact that they're live streaming these things. Like, they're not even uploading them in really high quality. They're relying on the shoddy, unreliable quality of a stream. And I actually think so far a lot of these reveal events have actually gone pretty well considering that.
Yeah, I mean, they must have. I think it was through Twitch and YouTube. Am I right?
Yeah, Twitch, YouTube, and I want to say there was one other. Some other live.
Facebook Live or something nobody actually uses.
Yeah,
Mixer would probably be one. But
Mixer might have been the one that it was actually. Yeah.
But they have they'll probably have a back end deal and say, look, we can't just settle for the 720p stream. This needs to be. I don't know if you can do 4K stream right now through those platforms, but
I'm pretty sure you can.
Put out for us. Can you give us the best gear?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they've just worked really hard at it. To be fair, the way that a lot of it was produced, it did look, for the most part, like some of it was a good majority of it was pre-recorded. which just makes sense. Like, to do it that way, you're going to have less hiccups if it's entirely live. Everybody's in different places, so you've got, you know, like internet dropouts and other patchy things to worry about. So I actually do think, like, for some of it being pre-recorded, I think it worked about as well as you could expect.
So let's quickly run through this list of the 5 reasons that this the PS5 launch was a horrific nightmare. The first one being no killer app, and that's how I know this is not written by someone who actually plays games, because they think most people know what a killer app is. A game's so good it makes you want to buy the console. Games are not apps, so let's just put that one to bed. But apparently there was nothing that was so inspiring that makes you want to pick up the console on release. Sony is basically, from the games that I saw, we're dipping back into the classics. I mean, we got a Ratchet and Clank announcement, of all things, you know.
Yeah, I like Ratchet and Clank, man.
I can't think of anyone who's like, man, I really hate those Ratchet and Clank games.
That Ratchet, what a dick.
Clank, more like Clonk. I was playing for the fence.
Clonk, am I right?
Yeah.
Guys.
Like a Spider-Man reveal at the expansion for Miles Morales in the main Spider-Man game was pretty cool. And then going back to Demon Souls, because we needed a Dark Souls style game, and why not bring back the original Dark Souls game? A game so Dark Souls, it was Dark Souls before Dark Souls was Dark Souls.
Yeah. All of the things that you just said there. Yeah, I actually, like, I wasn't really too bothered about PlayStation at all, but I know that me and Kaylee will probably end up owning both consoles, although in this particular cycle we may only actually have one of each, as opposed to we both have Xboxes right now. She has a PlayStation and a Switch. Actually, she has 2 Switches right now.
Why does she have 2? Never mind.
She's got the regular Switch, and she just bought the Switch Lite.
Right, so the second point was graphics were not as good as Unreal Engine 5. Now, I'm going to take a wild guess and say that this person saw the Unreal Engine 5 teaser trailer that dropped a couple of weeks back, which I will say was mind-blowing.
Yeah, it was
really
good.
Fantastic.
It was good, but let's be honest, it's 1, not the be-all and end-all, and 2, it's like a trailer it's like a teaser trailer preview of a game engine that's not actually been used and abused and figured out, and all of the, you know, graphical potential put into an actual full game yet.
Yeah, it is the lighting engine and the physics engine behind a highly polished finished product, not a game. You know, it's not something that's going to be actively interacted with the same way that games are. You know, like what we're doing right now, watching you play Call of Duty. Like, I don't know how many. Like, I don't know what this was made with. I can't remember which engine is used for Call of Duty.
Ooh,
but I guarantee you, if you take that engine and use it to generate the same sequences that were used for the Unreal 5 engine, it would look massively better than Call of Duty would. But it's because it's just not the same thing.
Yeah,
but,
it's not the same as actually running a game. We also have to remember that, like, pretty much every generational jump with consoles, you're not going to see anything particularly new and shocking graphically straight away. Like, there has to be time for people like that are developing for those new engines to actually work out, you know, what the hardware's capable of, what the engines are capable of, and how, you know, how much you can push stuff, especially on console. Stuff can come out on PC a lot more unrefined because, you know, driver issues and stuff aside, you know, people can turn down the settings, people can adjust things, people can find hacks and workarounds. And, you know, if they really want to get something working before the, like, full official patch comes out to get stuff working, there's always things that they can do. Because somebody will be more passionate about it and will have shared a fix on it sooner than a developer can get a full-fledged patch out to everybody.
Yeah.
That's just kind of, that's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, and I'll disagree with you on the idea that console generations don't change that much. It's weird to see that right now, because we're in the middle of the generation. I can still remember going from 360 to Xbox One and being like, oh my god, I love the Xbox 360, but everything I played in that was crap. Definitively crap. Because of just a massive step forward in graphics between the Xbox 360, which was barely pushing 1080p at some points.
I think a lot of it was 720 upscale.
And then you go to an Xbox which is getting strong 1080p, possibly higher, and then being upscaled onto like a 4K TV. I think that's a much bigger improvement, especially in just the way that games were performing as well. Like I don't think I ever really saw. There wasn't. My 360 was pretty good. It didn't have that many issues, but at the same time, when you take the quality of this generation of console games, for me at least, it's been much more consistent and consistently better than the previous generation of the Xbox 360 and the PS3.
No, it's a fair point. My point to clarify, I wasn't saying that the graphical jump wasn't significant. I was just saying that initially, at least, it's never as significant as you end up getting towards the end of a generation. Like, do remember that GTA 5 was able to play on the last generation consoles. Like,
same with Destiny 1, although if you go back and play Destiny 1 on Xbox 360, it is a physically different game.
Oh, absolutely.
That just aren't there in the 360 version. I was like, this is a different looking game.
Yeah. There always will be things like that. But, you know, the fact that those games were in fact playable, you know, on those systems is you know, very impressive. It just shows the level of optimization you can get to, especially on a console. Like, that is ridiculous, and you don't find that level of optimization in PCs. You can build a PC that has roughly the same, you know, tech specs as, say, a 360, but if you load up a game from that generation, from that era, on your PC, I can pretty much guarantee you, you know, if you match the specs almost exactly to the console, you won't get as clean or as smooth an experience running on what is essentially the same hardware. Because there's other overheads and stuff that you've got to consider and think about that aren't just like what actual hardware goes into it. You know, and that's like a big key thing for the PC gaming space. That's why we have all these settings and stuff, because, you know, right now with COD, I can choose, you know, I can choose, do I want 144 frames a second, or do I want, you know, like the 1440p ultra setting graphics? You know, would I trade 2K graphics at 60 frames for, say, you know, like maybe a little under 1080p for 144 frames, you know? Like, what do I value more? Is it the high frame rate, or is it the graphics? And if my system can't do the high-end graphics, then, you know, am I just lowering those settings so that it's actually achievable on my system? You know, that's why we have the options as PC gamers as much, because it's so impossible to optimize games for such a wide variety of components. Like, you know, no way is everything that we, you know, run and do on a PC ever going to be as optimized as it will be on a console. Like, it won't ever be. Hi.
Yeah. And also, as far as like optimization goes, Unreal Engine 5 demo was the biggest example of like the finally like fully finished product, because I had people who weren't gamers ask me about what they saw, and you know, a thing's gonna actually look that good, and I said, I mean, they'll get like 75% of the way there, but that final 25% polish is so important. So, like, you know, that's, bear in mind for that one when it comes to comparing the next generation to an Unreal Engine, you know, tech demo, basically. I mean, what was the it was demos way back in the day, and I think it was like a Fable 3, like a Fable themed demo for the Xbox One that had everyone like absolutely.
Oh yeah, I remember that one actually.
It might actually not have been Fable. It might have just been that Peter Molyneux was involved, and I assume that therefore makes it Fable.
Yeah, Peter Molyneux's. He's a case and a half, man.
I almost missed that guy, and then I'm like, no, I remember the last Fable game.
Yeah. He's an interesting case, let's put it that way.
Next complaint on the list here from the Metro was that there was no new IP shown in the console generation, like the trailer. I don't think that's technically correct. I think there was some other stuff that was there was some stuff in there that I don't recognise it. Maybe I just don't really remember it. But yeah, this is a new console generation. You start with a strong platform of games that people trust, and that's why every Nintendo launch has a Mario title,
and a Zelda title, and a Pokemon title, and
and every Xbox One has a Halo game.
Yeah,
there's always something in that initial launch of games that it's someone saying, I want to see the next chapter of blank, and I can't wait to see it on the new console.
Yeah, and a lot of the time that's the only way you can experience that next chapter is on that new console, especially if it is an exclusive and it's something new.
Yeah, it's a very easy selling point.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then they come to... This is where I think that with a lot of these articles, I feel like they have to say 5 things that are disappointing, because the next thing they say is, there's no new multiplayer. Does that not also fall under no new IP?
Yeah. What do they exactly mean with new multiplayer? Like, are they looking for some particular...
Jason Manford now works at Iceland.
Is there some particular thing that they're looking for in there?
Well, let's just read this first chunk of the passage here. It says, the other problem with having so many sequels is that, as everyone's already pointed out over the last generation, most of Sony's games seem to be following a very obvious formula, as laid down by Naughty Dog with Uncharted and The Last of Us. Of these 9 Sony games, 7 of them are single-player, third-person action games. I mean, Sony has prided itself in being, as you've mentioned, for the gamers. Gamers want a story every now and again. We are pretty much... We're not done with first-person shooters and competitive multiplayers, but the market is saturated. Mm-hmm. You gotta understand that. There are only so many hours in a day, and only so many of those that we're willing to spend in a game lobby. And some of the time, we just don't want to be in that lobby because it's a toxic shithole, as discussed before. So the idea that Sony should be chastised or like kind of looked down upon for providing narrative gameplay, when I don't think this person understands how long we've been waiting for a company to consistently put their neck on the line to say narrative-driven gameplay is an important thing for gamers. I mean, you remember the 360 launch titles, it was all Call of Duty clones. And after that, it was all Halo clones. And then after that, it was all Gears of War clones. We went through every version of an FPS lobby that we possibly could. It was a good thing, like when Nintendo brought out stuff like The Last of Us and Uncharted, when Sony brought out Uncharted and The Last of Us through Naughty Dog. It was praised so much because it was something new. And I think Sony's willing to put the reputation line and say, look, we are willing to give you an interesting story, because as well you can fill that story with cinematic moments that should serve as a great way of showcasing your new console. Like, you can't really showcase a new console with a Call of Duty game. It's not the same thing unless you have like a very strong solo player experience. But Call of Duty doesn't really do that anymore. Whereas if you take a known IP and you give it an interesting new version for the new console generation, you can create hype and buzz and show people great cinematic moments rendered on your console for people in their own homes that they didn't think was possible. And you can take stories to the next step, and you can provide more entertainment value and talking points, but that at the same time hype up your console. Does that make sense? I'm with you. I'm with you on that. Like, I think at this point, gamers have just finally been recognised as having more different. Yeah, and having a lot of different tastes and stuff too. Because for a very long time, you were right, every game just became a clone of each other, because nobody wanted to do anything scary, nobody wanted to do anything risky, everybody just wanted to try and get their game to sell really well. And so the easiest way to do that was just to just do what everybody else was doing. And that was the safe bet. That was how they did it. And I can't blame them for doing that, because do you know what? Like, games for a while were in a bit of a scary place.
if they didn't succeed through the last couple of generations, we may not still be playing them now. I don't think they would have went away entirely, but I think the volume of them certainly would have dipped.
Yeah. If you compare the volume of PS2 games and even 360 games to what we have now, it's a lot less. I mean, PC gaming still maintains a very strong indie market, but it's not the same as the PS2 generation. It's not. We're nowhere near that level of just variety of games where people were trying stuff. And I think that's because gaming became big industry. It became, a multi-billion-dollar empire for people who are executives. The people who want to make money. They take safe bets. They don't take risks with game creators, because if you take risks, you end up with Anthem.
Yeah, although that's apparently being worked on again, and they're kind of going to rebrand it and relaunch it, and it's going to be something totally different.
It's because they need to save face. You've created one of the biggest punchlines in gaming history, almost. This is, I'd say it's close to, there was the original ET game back in the 1980s, where they have apparently buried 500,000 copies in the desert somewhere.
Oh, there's no apparently about it. That is 100% true. There was a documentary about it.
I just saw your execution of the experience.
Yeah,
Right.
thank you. Thank you. It's very difficult to land one of them because you need peace for like a good couple of seconds, and this particular map is fucking crazy.
Yeah. The last thing that they've highlighted as being a massive disappointment as far as the PS5 is concerned, hidden caveats. So basically they're saying that they were hoodwinked. Actually, mentioned the fact that the Spider-Man game is a Miles Morales expansion for the Spider-Man game that came out on PS4. Apparently, not everyone was aware of that. And a lot of people were like, oh my god, Miles Morales gets his own game. Unfortunately, no. I'd love to see it, but they've decided to just put his character in a new storyline and run it through that engine because it's a damn good engine. Why would you not use it again? And just didn't decide to make it a full game, which is actually kind of okay, because it means you're not going to pay full price for a fantastic tech demo of what your PS5 is capable of. I mean, I see that as a win, because I think there's going to be backwards compatibility. I think they're pushing that more this generation because they know it was a massive letdown in the current generation.
Are they though? Are they? I'm really glad that you brought this up, because Sony has pretty much come out and said that they're not really doing backwards compatibility because they genuinely believe that even though backwards compatibility is sought after, for the most part you do eventually get to the point where you're only playing new stuff and you very seldom go back to the old, so what would be the point? And I understand where they're coming from on that. I don't agree with it. I think it's a very important thing, at least to provide the option for. And so far they have said, or at least not exactly confirmed or denied whether or not they're fully going to implement backwards compatibility. From the sounds of things, it very much sounds and looks like they are not really that bothered about the backwards compatibility nature of things. It sounds like they'll be just focusing on the new, and I think if they do bring out remasters and such, if it was, I think they will be on PS5 style discs with those downloads, and you'll basically need to kind of buy them again on the next generation. Quite a lot like what actually happened with the current generation, where it just for a while it was just clones of older games coming out.
Yeah, and I can see that as if we're talking about with Sony having a much more first person or action adventure style game plan for a lot more of their IPs. It makes a lot more sense for them to maybe hold off on backwards compatibility, because you're basically just giving people a free game at that point.
Yeah.
Where you could, as a business, you could probably just charge them for an upgraded version or a remaster, or even just charge less for digital remasters. They look with upgraded it with some new 4K texture packs. Such as 20-30 quid will make it happen for you. And just because you have the previous version of the game, we're happy to do that. We've already made money off of it, but you can also have people come back and give you full price for a game. Why would you not do that as a business? It just makes more sense to hold off on it.
Yeah.
Microsoft had the infrastructure through Xbox Game Pass and through the Xbox system, where they want to change to be a different type of platform, where they can have backwards compatibility or crossplay through PC and Xbox.
Yeah, so difference being that Xbox are going full backwards compatible from day one. They're also doing what I'm dubbing forwards compatibility, and I'll explain exactly what that is, because I don't think anybody else has quite used that terminology for it yet. But what Microsoft has promised is if you are still on like a current generation console, so if you've still got like your Xbox One or your Xbox One X, like especially if you've gotten one of them, in the last couple of years, because like it ain't cheap.
Yeah.
To get new consoles all the time. So, a lot of people have upgraded their, Xbox Ones and stuff like that, and, that makes perfect sense to do so.
They did just launch a little half generation with the Xbox One X. So if they feel like they've maybe want to make up some of that to the community by giving them some forward compatibility, it makes a lot of sense from a PR move, especially with Microsoft being not great at their own PR when it comes to console releases.
Yeah, they've not been particularly great sometimes. So they're doing like what they're basically having as a forward compatibility option. So if you have the last generation console, you are going to be able to buy the stuff for the next generation console and still be able to play it on your last generation console. You're just going to play it with downgraded visuals and some downgraded features, bless you.
Okay. Is she okay? Jesus Christ.
She's got hay fever up the fucking duff, man.
It sounds like I think half her head off.
Yeah, like she's been sniffing and sneezing a lot. So that's basically what they're offering. Like Cyberpunk was the first game to kind of confirm this properly. It's basically saying that if you buy the Xbox One version, you will get the One X, the Series X. Sorry, still a really terrible naming convention. Can we go back to that after this? Because even I get muddled up with it, and I'm actually following this tech space pretty heavily. So so Cyberpunk was saying that's going to be like a big game for this next generation. Cyberpunk is like well looked forward to. So they were saying if you buy the Xbox One version, you will get the One X version upgraded to for free once that version's ready to go.
That is it's like a nice touch to give to the console community that way, but I think that's because Microsoft have the infrastructure in place, whereas I don't think Sony have that. But also, as I said, I think it benefits Sony a bit more to actually make you repay for those games because of their leaning towards action titles and narrative-driven stuff.
Yeah, I can see why there's the difference. I have to kind of side with Microsoft's sort of infrastructure on it a little bit more on this occasion, because I just think that's such a better way to do things. I just think that more people will be into the fact that you can, kind of cross-play between those generations on Xbox for the first couple of years is how long they've committed to this. So, like, any big name releases, so like if we're going to get a new Gears of War, if we're going to get a new Halo, if we're going to get like big things in like some kind of Xbox exclusive state, it sounds like for the first 2 years you're going to have some kind of downgraded version of that available to play on your your Xbox One, which that's a big, bold commitment to make at this stage, and I'd be interested to see exactly how well it pays off. Like, they have been pretty clear on it's just big AAA first-party titles that are getting that treatment.
The in-house stable of studios that we have, we can support that, but we're not going to support it for everyone.
Exactly, yeah. So that it makes a lot of sense for that, and I gotta say, like, I commend their decision to do that. Like, because really, like almost like a PC, the generations make no difference. Like, whether I'm playing this that came out, last year at this point, I'm playing this that came out last year, or I'm playing something that came out, 20 years ago, I can still play it on the same system with varying degrees of, you know, compatibility issues aside.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, effectively, you know, Xbox consoles have been Xbox consoles, PCs, sorry, have been cross-generational for years, and it's just nice to see that for, you know, for not for financial gain this time, that the console space is getting a little bit of that same treatment.
Although I will say it was tried in the last generation. There were games that were available at the same time on PS3 and PS4 or Xbox 360 and then the Xbox One. Definitely being a good example of that. You could play on either at the same, like those were running at the same time. And then you would have, I think there was a few other games that actually made it into the list. Call of Duty is being a good example because they're such a big game. You do kind of want to keep people in that the game. The ecosystem in a way. So,
yeah,
they have tried this in the past. Whether or not it pans out for them, I really hope so. That was a damn tight match. 100-99.
Yeah, it was quite tight. I was a big fan of the last match that was actually even closer, and I got like fucking 32 kills. I had a ridiculous life. I even got a VTOL at one point. I don't often get a kill streak that fucking high, guys. I'm not that good at Call of Duty.
Yeah, and the other, actually, the hidden caveats, they had a point about complaining about Demon Souls and saying that it's amazing to see the game remastered with these graphics. However, it's a bit disappointing that you have to choose between high quality graphics or a high frame rate instead. And I'm like, you people are not ready for the PC gaming master race.
Absolutely not. I if that is true, I love that that is an option, and I don't even care if it is just a favor performance or favor graphical fidelity option. I don't even care if it's just a toggle between those two. I literally don't give a shit. The fact that I have that option on a console, I am fucking sold if I've got that. It's about damn time that I was able to make at least that level of adjustment.
And for a game like Demon Souls, I know people in that speedrunning community, they are going to pick the high frame rate every time because
every time.
This thing could, with a console this powerful, it could be sitting at someone's streaming desk where they're plugging it into a BenQ monitor. It goes up to 120, 144 frame rate, or it could be sitting in someone's TV. Like, it could be sitting in someone's TV room, just plugged into the usual, like, the family TV screen, where you might want to pick a bigger image to fill out that 4K, the 4K screen that's, you know, the main TV for the family, or you might be happier with a 1080p image because you're not that far away from the monitor, and you want the higher frame rate because of, you know, the game you're playing, like Demon Souls. You'd want more information. You want to see more of the attack pattern to give yourself a bit more information when it comes to defeating bosses and stuff like that, predicting attack, dodging moves. You know, those extra frames make a difference for that type of gameplay.
Oh, they absolutely do. Like, there was somebody that did a comparison, I think, on the original Dark Souls, running it on like 360 and PS3 where it first came out, then running the Dark Souls remastered at 60 frames a second on those same consoles. No, sorry, on the Xbox One and then PS4, and then also running the remastered PC edition up to 144 frames, and just comparing like how many frames of basically, you know, warning that you get for certain attacks, and there's as much as like a 25% difference between frame rates. Like, you know, you basically got 25% more time to react to something, because you've got 25% more visual information coming to you.
Yeah, and this is something that's happening at the same, like, the speed of the action doesn't change, but you see more of it. You see it in smaller stages as it happens. So your brain goes, oh shit, it starts moving of its own accord before you actually think about it.
Yeah. There's so much study being done into it. I signposted to Linus again, but he did a whole thing with like professional gamers and you know, like more.
And Gavin.
And
Gavin Free.
and Gavin Free, yeah, he was there for the first one. I'm on actually about his second experiment, that he repeated this with a bunch of famous streamers.
A bunch of other guys.
Yeah, and just and then also just like, you know, some lower level gamers, but you know, also just normal gamers.
I don't know what that is. go find out what Shroud is, because you're about to be scared. Very, very scared.
Yeah.
Kill confirmed.
But yeah, like it's interesting to see like all the differences between like the frame rates and stuff and how well people do. And like you're talking about, these are you know, intense, fast-paced FPS games that those tests were done in, not in, you know, like third-person action or adventure games like that. But the same principle still applies. At least the more frames of information you have, the more likely you can react to stuff. And that's really important. So, on the note of frame rates and stuff, and differences between like having somebody sat at like a console or a stream desk versus having somebody sitting in a living room, are we now going to see a whole new market for 4K high frame rate TVs so that people have that option in their living room?
They do exist out there. They are rare.
Yeah, they do exist already, but are we going to see a much more competitive, more affordable market for them, is my main thought.
My instinct says no, because it's such a niche product, but gaming is also quite a bit bigger, so I could see some people trying it. I could see, especially Sony, making TVs, could push one to coincide with the PS4, like, oh, while you're at it, while you're buying one Sony product, do you know what works really well with this other Sony product? How about it? I could see that working.
You should just do their marketing. That was really good. I want to buy one. Don't even know what it is you're selling yet. You haven't gotten to the main pitch.
But like,
That was an awful match.
If they have a high frame rate TV and they're selling a console that runs at high frame rates, you could bundle those together. You could make that a sales pitch to like an average user. I don't think a lot of people will go for it. I see people choosing more monitors. So just a heads up, I think higher frame rate monitors might start spiking in prices.
They are kind of pricey anyway, and it very much depends on the panel that you get in it. Like, as in, like, all of them are LCD or LED, but the type of panel that's actually behind it, the projection type, is different. And that is what makes a big difference, because, like, a VA panel, for example, is kind of a cheap panel in which to make. You can drive really, really high frame rates through it really easily, and you get a really crisp, sharp, responsive image, but your color quality and your brightness levels are often awful, and your viewing angles are even worse. So unless you are straight on, properly sat upright, very properly at the proper angle at a proper desk, you're not going to have a great experience with that type.
It's good for a gaming laptop, but for like a TV in the main room, no, not going to work. Not going to
work at all, because like your viewing angle is pretty much, you know, like could be the majority of the room.
Yeah,
you know, you want that visible from a lot of angles. TVs, as far as I'm aware, based on what I know about panel technology, are probably IPS panels. Really vivid colors, really good viewing angles, but not particularly responsive. That's why a lot of TVs have like a game mode built in that typically dulls down some of the colors and applies an overdrive to the TV so that it actually runs, or at least it looks like it's running at proper 60 frames or 60 hertz, as it were.
I could see it pushing to 60 frames per second on televisions. I could see it being a much more common thing, and people advertising it a bit more. I don't see them pushing further than that. I could see bigger monitors becoming a thing, because I don't know if this type of console probably does belong in the TV room. Like, it does belong in the family room. But there are gamers who have it in their bedroom, who have it, you know, on a streaming desk, who have it, you know, just in their room away from the public. So I don't know if you would need to have a TV in the same household that would support a higher frame rate if you're not going to have that console there. So I just don't see there being a market for a high frame rate 4K TV in a way. Maybe not this generation, maybe not yet. Maybe in a couple of years it might change depending on what this console generation does. I could see this, the generation between the Xbox One X and the PS5, maybe pushing like content in a like up towards higher frame rates and stuff like that, as well as, you know, high graphical quality of like a 4K image. But I don't know. I just don't think it's enough to justify making TVs that are so much more powerful than really they need to be. If that makes sense.
Especially when the content that you're going to watch, like if it is a TV that you game on, the likelihood is that you're not hyper competitive. It's kind of, for me at least, I find it more easy to be hyper competitive sat in front of my computer playing games like this.
You're locked in. You're like a foot and a half away from the screen at most.
If that, yeah.
That, I'm not gaming on a gaming desk. I'm actually gaming on a circular dinner table. I just don't. I live alone, so I can use this as the gaming desk.
It makes sense. I have a proper desk set up.
Ooh, la-di-da. I'm actually organising one. I'm getting one. My brother is getting rid of his and getting a different type of desk. I'll take yours if you don't mind, because I built yours. Yours is good.
I like yours.
I built it. It's fucking heavy. That means it's good. It's quality materials, because we could kill somebody with that thing. If I dropped that panel on myself, I was going to the hospital. I can't see the need for it. Say having a high frame rate TV in your living room. I just, when you consider it as part of the family home, I don't see that working. But it does make me wonder what would happen to, we do 4K upscaling. Will we try and make 60 frames per second or higher upscaling for old TV shows as well? Would that become...
I want to say probably, yeah, because especially as the, massive jump in quality from even your standard HD to 4K, people are starting to be a little bit more tech clued in on when you watch an older show or whatever on your big 4K TV or whatever now, it looks like shit. It looks so bad.
Because I was thinking about old, really bad British TV shows that would be amazing to see on a 4K. They've tried to make it look modern by just running it through AI algorithms that generate extra frames to give it the 60 frames a second. I would love to see what horrific nightmare something like The Bill becomes, a really old 1990s, 1980s British TV show becomes when it was filmed on actual film. I would love to see what happened with something like that when you try and maybe up-res it and then up-frame it, I guess. We might use that term.
Here's a debate, though. Would you necessarily... higher resolution, yes, but higher frame rate? Would you genuinely want to see, stuff running through, higher frames on your TV as a show?
For certain things I want to see it for the freak show, for The Bill, because it's such an old show and it looks so bad already. I just want to see what happens to it. Just in the same way I want to see, when you watch, car crash footage for, the test dummies, you just want to see what happens to the dummy. I just want to see what happens. But I wonder if a push from consoles and gamers towards 60 frames a second would change things for filming, because, do you remember when The Hobbit came out and it was seen as ridiculous that it was available at 48 frames a second, because they doubled the speed of the original 24 frames a second. And it just looks so weird. There's something so bendy about certain things, certain objects. I think there are a lot of complaints about swords and metals and reflective surfaces just look wrong at 48 frames a second. I wonder if that might push if a console generation pushes gamers and then pushes the general public, and as a result, people in industries would then also try and adapt to make 60 frames a second shows.
Yeah, Maisie, shut up! You're ruining the facade of you being a good dog. I understand it, because I watched the Hobbit. I liked the Hobbit, but it was weird. It did look strange, being that it was filmed, at double the frame rate and processed at double the frame rate. And actually, for real world stuff like films, I honestly don't think that is necessary, because it looks a bit weird. You must have a smartphone. It's just kind of a requirement these days. But so many smartphones have the option to shoot something like video from your smartphone at 60 frames a second. A lot of the time you have that option. So I do shoot stuff at 60 frames a second on my phone, but whenever I watch it back, I always just think, man, it actually looks weirdly smooth. I actually think watching it back, it looks smoother than when it actually happened in real life when I was filming it. Yeah. And that is because I feel like our just perception of what real life movement should look like is like 24 or 30 frames a second, because you just get that is what like TV and films and cinema, like that's all their frame rate. That's how we get, you know, why we get it called cinematic standards. So like if it was filmed faster than that, would it just look bizarre? Because like The Hobbit kind of does look a bit bizarre.
But I think that's a change, and I think the YouTube generation will push that a bit further than previous generations have, because, as you say, it is just the standard. It's a thing because we said it's the thing. Mm-hmm. And I think if you look at YouTube having built-in 60 frames a second, Twitch right now, you can stream at 60 frames a second, and it looks better. It looks smoother than, say, like the actual normal 24 or 30 frames a second. Mm-hmm. And you have people like cinematographers growing up in the YouTube space saying, I have no idea why you'd film anything at 24 frames a second. I get that it works as part of cinema and it's part of cinema's heritage, that things are just done this way. Mm-hmm. But I have more information at 30. Why not film everything at 30? And then the argument comes, oh, why not film at 60? And as you say, if I'm ever recording or filming something, I do film at 50 frames a second. It exports at 25 or 24, whatever, but I do film at 50. If that makes sense. Like
you capture at 50 frames rather than 60.
Yeah, the camera I have, it's 50.
Fair enough.
Rather than 60. I can't remember for the life of me why. I don't know why I have it, but I'm pretty sure it was because I bought it slightly cheaper. I bought it through Amazon, and I was assuming it was going to be a 60 frame second camera because it was selling from within the UK, but somehow ended up at 50. It might just be a limitation of that camera. It was a lot cheaper, so it might be that. But yeah, the thing on that is either 25 or 50, because it's a Canon. I can't remember exactly which one it is. It's on the other side of the room, so I'm not going to go get it.
Fair enough.
Yeah. It's just a different standard, and as you say, like things are just the standard because we say they're the standard. And for a long while, when cinema was very set in its ways, the standard was important because it meant people made compatible films that would work with projectors all around the country in cinemas where it had to be shown. But now you have a mini cinema in your pocket because you could put an entire film on your phone and watch it on your phone.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then we all have different monitors, different TVs, different streaming services. The digital age has come for cinema, and it is making changes. And I wonder if a console generation would push it away from 24 to 30 frames, which was a big push, maybe start looking at 60. And we'll have to see what happens, really.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of impossible to predict. I can see like where you're going with it, and I think just because technology is just like so ridiculously keen on advancing just now, like we are in a hell of an age for an advancement in tech. Like, absolutely nobody can deny like that kind of age that we are in right now for tech. Like we are seeing some ridiculous numbers. We are seeing ridiculous like benchmarks. We are seeing just some incredible stuff. Whether it's done by these massive supercomputers that are ridiculous that will eventually be miniaturized to be, consumerly available, or, the total flip side of it, whether you're seeing like, PlayStation 2 era games being run on, something equivalent to the size of a Raspberry Pi, the super small credit card sized computer that's able to run, something like a PlayStation 1 could, very easily.
But in a fraction of the size. And actually, I want to give someone a physical, tangible example of what we're talking about with the advancement in tech. There was a photo, I retweeted it, it was NQBHD, who is a fantastic tech YouTuber. Absolutely would recommend his stuff. He's so knowledgeable and he's so great at explaining the stuff you don't understand to you because you didn't realise you didn't understand it until he talks about it. he shared a picture of someone loading a 5 megabyte hard drive onto a plane. It took a truck. Okay, this is an entire chunk of metal that is just a series of hard drive disks, and it is probably about 10 feet wide and then about 5 feet tall, and then probably about the same in depth as well. So it is a massive hunk of metal, and this is a 5 megabyte hard drive. Now, I retweeted that saying it's really funny to see this image when today I threw a 32 gigabit hard drive, like just chucked it to my friend across a room, because that's how small a hard drive has gotten now. And that was, say, 5 megabits compared to 32 gigabits. And now, you can have from SanDisk, a hardware manufacturer who make a lot of storage solutions, they have a 1 terabyte SD card.
Yep, and Linus Tactics as well, just the other day, just yesterday I think actually, was reviewing the 8 terabyte M.2 drive, so that's something that's about half the size, at least vertically, of a credit card, but probably about as long, and that thing's got 8 terabytes of storage on it. Like, I have a 3.5 inch spinning disk drive that doesn't have as much storage as that in my computer right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, what is the largest hard drive you have right now?
2 terabyte. 2 terabyte is the largest one I have. It's my spinning disk drive. I have a terabyte SSD, and I also have a 258 gigabyte M.2, which is where my Windows installs on.
Yep, my laptop has, I'd say, like a 250 M.2 drive, and then I have I use Kingston drives, so it's not like, it's like 480 and 960 as opposed to 512 and 1 terabyte. So I have those drives, and I have a 1 terabyte like plug-in USB drive that I have available just to transfer files over. But all those are decent size, and yet you have an 8 terabyte like saltine cracker that plugs into your PC, and it is good to go from the jump. It's insane that those exist, and it's fascinating.
Yeah, and like the speed at which these drives run is ridiculous. Like that particular M.2 drive, it has a memory controller on board because there is so much data that can flow through it so quickly. So it's got a memory controller on board that has 2 gigs of DDR3 RAM built into just that NVMe SSD itself. So that thing has more RAM than some phones do. That thing has more RAM than some Chromebooks do.
Yeah, and that drive actually might have more RAM than my phone.
Yeah, and that is just the era that we are living in terms of the advancement of tech and how miniaturized things are getting.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure there was a thing online that I seen the other day that was really interesting to me, because somebody compared the world's smallest computer to a grain of rice, and the grain of rice is like 27,000 times bigger than it.
Yeah, like, we've gotten weirdly good at engineering ourselves into weird corners. So I don't know why you made that. There's no need.
Yeah, and humans just seem to constantly want to do stuff like that. Like, like something comes out that is amazing and brilliant, and a bunch of people get round a table and go, let's make it faster, let's make it smaller, let's make it more powerful.
Yeah. The greatest thing ever, and they're like, okay.
Yeah. Now it's in your pocket.
Yeah. I actually, just while we're getting on the subject, I mean, this is all part of, it's called Moore's Law, where you're making it like every 2 years it becomes 1.5 times faster, smaller, or less expensive. Or the capacity increases. I think that's about right.
Something around that kind of line, yeah. Are we still following Moore's Law, or have we exceeded that expectation?
I think we've hit a point where we can't go that much faster. It depends how quickly we can crack quantum computing. But that's being very tricky right now. They're apparently at the stage where the IBM computer can do 4 plus 4. Like, God damn it. I
I'm just blown away by like the advancements that we are in, and like, you know, going back, I've maybe not exactly sold my theories on like the next console generation. I'm maybe making it sound a lot more negative than I should, but in all honesty, with anything, regardless of whether you're going to stick with PC, whether you're going to get one of the new consoles, whether you're going to experience this stuff firsthand, we all need to understand that this, as always with a new console generation, is going to be a big exciting time for advancements in text and stuff, because we are going to see, like, we're going to see, you know, bigger games, faster games. For the first time in a very long time, these consoles are getting a fairly significant CPU upgrade in terms of cores and speed. And so we're probably going to see a lot more algorithms being handled by games, during games, to run better AI scripts, to run more interesting scenarios through, you know, and just the amount that we'll be able to push that technology, and that will become available, you know, like it will sort of trickle down, as it were, to the PC space, you know. There's always PC games for PC gamers that are built from the ground up, you know, normally early access for PC, and those always look and feel amazing right from day one. But we're also going to get like all of these other things that are going to be console ports and cross-platform and other things like that. Like, we're going to see an awful lot of that stuff, you know, coming in and coming through. And it's always an exciting time just for tech to be making advancements, you know?
I think we're about to wrap up, but I want to give the actual definition of Moore's Law. Moore's Law is the observation that the number of transistors in a dense integrated circuit doubles about every 2 years. So yes, that does result in higher capacities, faster speeds, or for cost of production. So I wasn't entirely right, wasn't entirely wrong. I'll take that as a but yeah, it is interesting, and I can't wait to see how. I really hope the gaming industry doesn't decide to go full asshole about the coming changes in the generation. We'll wait and see how things pan out. But as far as being a gamer or even just a tech enthusiast is concerned, it's going to be really fun to be around for the next couple of years, just to observe all the changes, see how the community adapts to it, and how things advance at a continuing rapid pace that we've enjoyed the last couple of years.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like, you know, as you're saying with Moore's Law there, you know, things doubling in capacity or load, as it were. You know, at this point, like, we're not dealing with, say, you know, like 512 megabytes up to a gigabyte, you know, which was a serious jump at the time. But we're now talking about 4 terabytes becoming 8. We're talking about, you know, a processor that can push, you know, easily 3 gigahertz on all cores. You know, on like a 16-core CPU, we're talking about doubling that up to 32. You know, and then it'll be 64. Yeah. You know, I mean, we already have that. There is already a Threadripper out there that has, you know, 64 real cores and 128 threads.
Yeah,
like
I've actually was looking at I took an old laptop apart, but in the SD card reader I found a 512 megabit card.
Nice.
Like, oh my god, what was this for? It was also for cameras, but at the same time I'm like, I figured this would have been bigger. I assumed everything. I just assumed every SD drive was a gig at least. But no, apparently in the before time, you know, there was 512 megabits. Yeah, I think that. I mean, I don't think there's much more to say. We went through everything basically ran through the lens of the PS5.
Yeah, it kind of did. There's so much more we could really talk about, and so much more that we probably will talk about in coming times. But for now, I think we have covered everything just about as much as we possibly can. There's so many dicks. There's so many more details that I would. There's so many details that I would like to get more involved with. But as with anything, this is marketing and it's speculation. And at this point, we don't know guaranteed anything for sure about the actual, you know, performance of this next generation until it is fully out and commercially available. And
wait until it gets into the hands of the people.
Wait until it gets into the hands of the people. Wait until the benchmarks come in. Wait until the scores come in. Wait until people actually analyze and break down exactly what is in these things, what is making them tick, and whether or not it really lives up to the marketing. But what we can be assured of is that the games that we're going to see in the next generation are probably going to be twice as big, twice as fast, twice as detailed, and we're just going to keep seeing these generational jumps every 3 years. It's just always the time to get excited about stuff. I am excited about the fact that the consoles unanimously, although the PlayStation has the more advanced controller for their SSD, so therefore has the better load times and stuff for that. But I am glad to see that both consoles are in fact going for the SSD route. Welcome to PCs about 5 years ago, in terms of becoming standard. But fact of the matter is, we actually have that now more commercially available. It's going to drive down prices of SSDs, which are actually getting really reasonable. I think it's a bit strange almost that I say that I've got a terabyte SSD in my computer now just for games. That is all that drive is there for. It's just for installing games to. And boy, when it comes to Call of Duty, am I glad it's a terabyte drive, because it needs a lot of space. Bringing it full circle back to that. But just the fact that drive cost me less than £100 for a terabyte of fast storage, that's really reasonable. It is good, to be into tech at this point, because there's so much available. I mean, I can't remember if that's my guy. Never mind. I can't remember if I tweeted. Was it a tweet or was it something else that I put? I think it was Instagram actually that I put up that I had streamed my PC through to my TV in the living room, and I was just using my TV as my PC through in my living room. I was literally controlling everything that I have on my PC from my TV. I was just, remote playing The Witcher through there. That is cool that we are in that kind of, that kind of age. To me, it's a real shame that wasn't running as well as it could have ran on my PC natively. Because it's got
at the same time, you beamed it through a wall to your television. You live in the future now, officially.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that is even possible is amazing. That is so cool. To even have that as an option. And I just absolutely love that.
So I guess we'll have to keep on top of things and just come back to do a few more of these. Just chat about the fact that we now live in the future.
And I honestly think I kind of get reminiscent about things and how they worked. I don't have a parachute. Whoops.
I can't wait to see this. I know where this is going. I see you on Earth Top and you say, "Oh yeah."
Yeah, it wasn't good. I briefly forgot I wasn't playing the Warzone mode, and I don't have the infinitely reusable parachute like Rico from Just Cause. But yeah, things are exciting. The future is cool. I get reminiscent about past tech and stuff like that. I remember back in the day, probably about the time that I had my first desktop PC, and it wasn't even mine exclusively. It was basically the family PC, but it was in my room, and I used it 90% of the time. Yep. That's the generation I've grown up through. I've come from when we didn't have a computer at all in the house, to having a family computer, to to a couple of people having a laptop to themselves in the house, to everybody having a smartphone, to everybody having a smartphone and probably at least one other smart device in the home, and all using this technology to share things and film things and capture things and share memories, share footage, share ideas. The advancement of just those developments alone are crazy to consider. In just our lifetime. And I think we have probably been through quite a bit more of that generational change than a lot of people have been. think there's been quite considerable developments, in our lifetime, more than there has been in a lot of previous generations. And we are kind of the generation that is a lot more used to change, and a lot more embracing of newer ideas, and I think that's why some things are getting a little bit more ridiculous, because it's just the time that these things can actually exist and do well in this time. I mean, did you see in the PC gaming stuff from IGN, they literally made a game about giant crabs with full physics that just fight each other with giant weapons. That's the entire game. It's called Fight Crab, and that's it. And I love that. I think that's absolutely brilliant. Kaylee was thrown aback. She didn't know what to do with that. I loved it straight away. I thought it was probably the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life, and I want it.
Yeah.
And I just think if that came out even 5 years ago, like, what would we have been looking at? Like, everybody unanimously would have went, what a stupid idea. And nobody would have bought it. But at this point, everybody's like, brilliant, something new, something different, something that isn't just, go here, shoot man, go here, pick up this.
Yeah. Embrace the change.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like, we get kind of caught up in it quite a lot, but like, change in tech space is good. Like, change is definitely not always bad. And I think like there's going to be an awful lot of change in this next gen, as there is with every generation, and we should just be excited about it. I am personally really looking forward to what this next gen actually is going to end up looking like. I'm interested to see if I will indeed pick up a new console, or if it's just going to be, I don't want to say PC master race, but if I'm just going to stick with my PC and have these options available, and have these more intermittent upgrades, rather than like waiting for the next big thing. Because now that I'm kind of more into tech and PC building and stuff, the fact that I have the ability to, even at this point, even though my PC is like, I don't know, like, I built it in March, so it's like 3 months old, I have capacity for that to be upgraded. I can still throw in a beefier graphics card, I can still throw in more RAM, I can still, if I really wanted to, I could throw in an even bigger processor to it. Like, there's so much scope for upgrades and incremental improvements and stuff, and like, that's just exciting and interesting to me, and I like that a lot.
Yeah.
And I just embrace the change. Change is good, and when change is bad, normally,
whine about it on Reddit. That's what everyone else does.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I don't actually think whining about it like in the public space is a bad thing anymore. Like, because for so long the consumer went unlistened to. Like, do you remember like how much of the last gen stuff was kind of ignored by the bigger companies? And now look at kind of what we're looking at with the with like the next gen stuff. I think a lot of the stuff that's happened in the tech space, when people haven't liked the way or a direction that something is going, people have spoke up about it, and actually companies are listening. Companies are doing what they say they will do. They are delivering better products. I mean, look at the redemption story from EA's Battlefront. Like, that was panned at launch, and is now actually pretty well received and pretty well played. You made the point earlier on when we were debating what game was going to be in the background of this. No Man's Sky was critically panned at launch because they flat out lied about what the game was actually capable of, at least what it was capable of at launch, and they maybe should have made that quite clear. But at the end of the day, it is now, it is now a different game. It is now good? Question mark? There's certainly things that I personally don't like about it, but I will put a little bit of time into it. Like, I think it's going to be decent enough, especially because I got Game Pass anyway. So, it's not really cost me anything to pick it up. So if I pick it up and play it for a bit, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. Like we were saying about the physical medium thing, I don't feel the need to be like connected in that sense.
Yeah, a little bit of a dispassionate, disconnected, more critical, open-minded but still critical approach to the media that you consume is better for you. I think it can. I mean, there's sometimes I load up a game and I get like 20 minutes in and I'm like, I just hate this. I don't want to play it anymore, and I'm just going to walk away. Whereas if I hadn't spent the money to buy a physical disc, I would have forced myself to play this all the way through and would have made myself miserable and just despised the game and the creators for making me sit through a subpar experience.
Yeah, and I can like count so many times that I have been really like in the past, like more as a child than I am now. I wouldn't say I've had this experience as an adult. But so many times in the past, I have had the experience of being so excited for a game and then just being so disappointed when it actually drops out. Now, my interest in what new games have to offer hasn't went away, but my level of excitement for them has definitely dropped. Hey, we did not bad with three players. I didn't actually realise we were half a team down.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah, half a team, but
half the score.
So, yeah,
yeah, that's fine.
Average. Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah, definitely. But I just remember getting burned so many times about being so excited for a game and then just being so disappointed when it actually finally dropped, and it just wasn't what I expected, and it wasn't like as good as I thought it was going to be, or just the appeal of it just dropped off really super quickly for me. I found like the kind of age that I currently am and the way that I'm kind of taking in content now, I'm a lot less excited about new game launches. I can't even think of the last game that I truly pre-ordered. Like, that I was so excited about that I actually, like, pre-ordered and, like, was really hyped up for the launch of it. Do you know what it genuinely might have been? It might have been Sea of Thieves. That genuinely might have been the last one that I actually pre-ordered.
I don't actually play that many games nowadays that aren't just bought off of Steam. And normally it's just that seems interesting, or it's something that's recommended to me, or I'll give it a try out or something.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time I pre-ordered a game. It's not a thing anymore.
Yeah.
It might actually been Dark Souls 3.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think I pre-ordered the Dark Souls Remastered. I think. When that was coming. I think I either pre-ordered it or I bought it really fucking quick after launch. I can't quite remember. But that was probably one of the last ones that I did actually grab like that. But yeah, I definitely say like I own a lot less games now. I am more in this sort of games for rent. As it were, sort of mentality as well. Like a lot of the newer stuff that I'm playing is through Game Pass. Although I'm kind of glad of services like that, because it does give me the option to play a couple of games, especially if they're ones where you're sort of on the fence about, where you're like, I don't want to drop £40 on that. You know, I don't want to drop a full £40 on. I don't want to do, you know, the full experience of this game, but
if you're giving it free, air quotes on free because you're paying it for every month, but if you're willing to give me this for free, I'll give it a go.
Yeah, it's kind of like I was semi-interested in the new Final Fantasy that came out, 1.15, I think it was.
It's impossible.
Yeah, it's but the Final Fantasy 15, I was pretty interested in that for a while, and it came onto Game Pass, and I loaded it up on PC semi-recently. I played it for like, I want to say I gave it about a good 6 hours. I just really couldn't get into it, and I stopped playing it, and there was no hard feelings about it. I didn't feel cheated, I didn't feel ripped off, and I'm really glad that I was in the state to actually have that.
Yeah,
Like,
you get to experience it.
Yeah, and I'm happy about that. Like, it is good that we have that kind of system in place now. I'm okay with only really occasionally dropping, like, I wouldn't even say I ever even buy a full price game anymore. So like dropping like between £25 and £35 on a game that I really am interested in that isn't coming to any of these like, subscription services, and filling the midterm with either older games that I just haven't gotten round to and then just get in the mood of and actually finally get round to. Case in point, The Witcher 3, which I think has taken me just so fucking long to actually get round to playing and get into properly. And now I'm like so invested in it that I don't want it to end, but I'm kind of so close to finishing the main story that I know it's going to end soon and I'm about to get super upset about it. And I was actually blown away. I wasn't expecting so much world-changing events from The Witcher 3, but I was very blown away by all of the actions that I've taken throughout the game. Even if initially they didn't seem like they were going to be much, by the end of like the main story at least, it seems like every action, every conversational choice that I have taken over the game has had some kind of impact. And it is reflected in the way that NPCs react to you in certain places and towns, in the way that certain like towns and cities completely change over time, and even the death of the death or survival of main characters in the game, which is somewhere that I didn't necessarily think they would actually go with it. I don't know why I didn't expect it, I just didn't, but it went there, and I was impressed at the level of detail that went into it.
Well, maybe that says something about the standard of gaming, and maybe it's dropped over the last couple of years, and maybe now with the new generation we get to redefine the standards, and I think The Witcher belongs in the conversation as to what gaming can be. Obviously it's a very specific genre that it's taking part in. It's very well, almost overwritten, like it took so long to make that game. It was definitely a labour of love for everyone involved, and I think that maybe sets a standard really for the next generation going forward.
Yeah, I definitely think, and I think there will always be games that we can hone in on as being like genre defining and standard defining. As this goes, like there will always be these games, and there's still some games now that if you go back and play them, like you can see that some of the mechanics were maybe like in the early days of how things were meant to work out, but you can definitely see like where these mechanics came from and how they were implemented. And sometimes you are thinking like this mechanic feels like it just belongs and feels like it should be in every game that I play. Why is it not in every game that I play? Just some games just do such a good job of doing mechanics, and some of them are doing them so much earlier than we would have thought as well. Like I don't even know who did like the press crouch while sprinting to slide in first person shooters, but god fucking damn, I wish that was in every game. I love doing that so much in FPS games, and I take really bad when I play a game that isn't in.
Yeah. It's a good example actually, because it's a thing that wasn't a thing. It wasn't around for a while. There's some games you go back to, like Borderlands. Go back to Borderlands 1, the original, and you tell me that was a modern FPS compared to what we have now.
Yeah, not definitely. Yeah, it's crazy how much they develop. I mean, like I've been playing a lot of this recently. It's got the slide, it's got the sprint. Go back and play like Halo 1. Through the MCC, yeah, you can have the updated visuals, but you can't sprint, you can't slide, you can't even go prone. It's a lot more of a simplistic game. The aiming is a lot more vague. It's just a different era that you're speaking about.
Call of Duty Modern Warfare. You can go back to Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the original that came out. I don't think that has a sprint and slide.
It has sprint, but I don't think it has
slide. Have sprint and slide.
Yeah. But yeah, like even the fact that like a sprint button is almost guaranteed to be in almost every game at this point.
Yeah.
Sometimes there is a limit to how much you can sprint, and sometimes there is not. But I can almost guarantee that there will be the ability to sprint in most games that come out now, because it's just a given thing. People just want to move faster than the default fastest speed in the game.
Yeah, it's interesting to think we've been around for long enough that wasn't a thing and then became a thing. I think that's an interesting... I mean, that's so much of this conversation has been, remember when this wasn't a thing and now it's everywhere we look?
Mm-hmm.
The change, the growing, the growth,
Yeah, so... I don't even know how we can summarize. We have talked about so many different points, and so many of them are so wide, and I feel like I had even more detail that I could have went into on some of them. But next generation is coming. It's exciting. There's definitely going to be things that we're going to like. There's definitely going to be things that we won't like, but that is okay, because as a community of gamers, of consumers, we can shift the balance of things. I am quite happy to see that the microtransaction style game is dying out.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's definitely dying out a lot more, or at least it's doing more of like the Call of Duty or even Rocket League style of season pass, as it were. I do quite like that that's becoming a bit more of a thing. That if you really just do like a game, I'm citing Call of Duty and Rocket League because they're the only ones I actually know that definitely do this, but you buy into that premium pass once, and as long as you're just consistently playing the game enough, you earn enough of that premium currency to just buy future packs.
Yeah.
And don't need to consistently, keep running with that, which... it can only be a good thing. Like it's good to just have that option for somebody to buy in and then just stay bought in.
Yeah, with the investment of time being exchanged for the investment of money.
Yeah, which I think is a fair investment, because not only are you getting something out of it, but you're also like basically you're making that sort of time/currency commitment. It's definitely a good change from when games were just demanding your microtransaction money to skip the time commitment. Like, that pay-to-win model that was around for a lot longer than it should have been. An awful lot longer than it should have been.
Yeah. So embrace the change, really, is what we're trying to go for.
Embrace the change. Times are tough. Times are difficult. Times are scary. Stay safe, everyone. Go outside, but not out.
Don't touch people.
Do not. Unless you live with them, then only touch them gently.
Yeah. Or you form a bubble with that other household across the road and you touch
my God,
people.
it's honestly that man is running a country, and I could say so many things.
Let's just drop it here. End the stream on a positive note that stay safe. We all love you. We all love each other. Deep down.